Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Luffy Time by Sangelide. Luffy would give up being the Pirate King before going on boring adventures. So why would Luffy choose to go back in time to do everything over again? He wouldn't. Doesn't mean someone can't send him there, but would he stay or try and get back to his original timeline? Adios.
Protecting the Straw Hat's ship. Vegapunk scoffed. Programming that will not be a challenge. Peering down at his experiment, the scientist turned the idea over in his mind. If the Straw Hats are that important, why didn't you send Straw Hat Luffy back to Shabati when you faced him at Marineford? It wouldn't have gone against any of your current programming. Monkey D. Luffy was resolved to rescue his brother. Pushing him away at that time would be pointless. Snorting, Vegapunk turned back to prepping his equipment. That resolve got him nowhere. Protecting his ship will be just as pointless. As soon as Straw Hat Luffy returns and sets sail, that will be the end of that pirate. He cannot stand against the Marines on his own. No. Vegapunk turned at the firm conviction in Kuma's voice. The warlord met his gaze. The Straw Hats will not be idle. When they return, their strength will be enough. Vegapunk chuckled at his experiment's belief. Shaking his head, he took 2 steps closer to examine Kuma's reactions. Do you really think those rookies only need a bit of training to rise above the force the government is bound to send against the Child of Dragon? I saw the footage from Marineford. Straw Hat Luffy won't last a month after he comes out of hiding. Straw Hat's will is strong. They will return with ample resolve. Kuma had a great poker face, but the scientist had years of work invested into the cyborg. The slight tick in the jaw and slight smoothing of the brow would be an angry scowl in another being. When was the last time the warlord had such a large emotional reaction? Straw Hat might be captured before he can return to the ship. What you ask could result in your body protecting an empty ship eternally. One of the Straw Hat crew is sure to return. The tension in Kuma's shoulders relaxed a minute amount, the equivalent of a small smile. So, it's the crew you're more interested in. Vegapunk nodded in understanding, calculating his next comment to confirm his hypothesis. With the captain's shoddy performance at the Summit War, the crew would be a better bet. The complete stillness and lack of immediate response betrayed just how much emotion his experiment was holding back. Suppressing a smile himself, Vegapunk waved a hand negligently. You can have your request. It won't matter if the Straw Hats have their ship or not. Their captain will either lead them straight to the Marines or their crew will scatter the next time they get in over their heads. The warlord's eyes closed for the last time. When next they opened, Kuma Bartholomew would be no more. Dr. Vegapunk had worked on this project for years. There was no question on his creation's success. Even programming the protection of Straw Hat's vessel would be no difficulty. After discovering how to allow the AI to use Kuma's devil fruit ability, the scientist was tired of the project. It held no challenge. The government had other scientists build and program standard pacifistas. Dr. Vegapunk refused to work on such mundane tasks. But the Marines insisted he personally finish the modifications on the original. What a waste. Vegapunk could be experimenting on how to recreate Kuma's ability to push others to far locations nearly instantaneously. Just how many laws of understood physics were broken by this aspect of Kuma's devil fruit power? What a gem the warlord had in his arsenal. The Grand Line held many mysteries that did not conform to the standard physics of the Four Blues. That was why Vegapunk loved working there. But never before had the laws of space and time been so challenged. The thought made him pause during Kuma's programming. Space and time. Time. Kuma could push a person far enough in such a short amount of time, but what about just traveling through time? Or still travel through space as well as time, but rather than shortening the time it takes to travel, it increased or reversed time. If time could be traveled the way Kuma could push people through space, the possibilities. Quickly, Vegapunk finished programming Kuma's request and followed it with another command. Push a person through time and report the details back to Vegapunk immediately following said attempt. The scientist happily marked the pacifista project as completed. If it worked, Vegapunk would have a new project to work on in the future. For now, the government would have their sentinels and Vegapunk could return to science. Scene break. He's been here ever since, Rayleigh explained to Luffy as they turned the last corner on their way to the Thousand Sunny. The captain caught sight of the person Rayleigh spoke of right away. The bear man was sitting calmly in front of Sunny, closed book in hand, staring straight ahead without moving. His hat has a hole in it, Luffy noticed. Hey, Rayleigh, can we get him a new hat? Or fix this one? Chuckling, the Silver Prince nodded. I'm sure something could be arranged. Kuma stood when the two reached the clearing. Luffy set down his pirate lunches. Rayleigh hung back as Luffy approached Kuma. Just before he reached the warlord, Luffy stopped and bowed low. Thank you very much for saving my nakama. Rayleigh grinned, proud of his student, and glanced away to give the two a little privacy. Luffy stayed bowed, determined to show Kuma just how much he valued what the bear man had done for the Straw Hats 2 years ago. Neither of them noticed Kuma reach up and remove one battle-torn glove. His mission to protect the ship was over, and the next programmed objective was needed: send a subject through time and report results to Vegapunk. The warlord took one step and reached out the ungloved hand. The AI was not programmed to ask where the subject wanted to go, as Kuma was accustomed to doing. Instead, the pacifista placed its paw on the top of Straw Hat's head and pushed Luffy through time, focusing on where the subject would most desire to go. For Luffy, who only lived for the present, there was only a single option. The one place in time where Luffy broke his promise, to live life with no regrets. Marineford. Luffy was flying. He knew this feeling. Nothing could dim the memory of losing his nakama. Knowing they were alive didn't change the horror of watching his crew disappear, believing they died one by one. Now he was flying again, just before he could see them all after 2 years. The bear man might have saved his nakama before, but this was just plain mean. Luffy tried to cross his arms to pout, only to realize he couldn't feel his arms. He tried opening his eyes, but nothing changed. Something was wrong. He couldn't see, couldn't talk, couldn't move, and beyond the sensation of flying, the captain couldn't feel anything. Luffy might have flown for an hour or a week, he couldn't tell, but he knew the exact moment he stopped. 1 second he was flying, the next he was blinking his eyes. It felt like waking up. He was laying on a hill. No, that couldn't be right. The texture was wood, not grass or rock. The sound of battle registered before the haze of sleep cleared from his eyes. A wooden deck was in front of him, and shifting his head showed another wooden deck underneath him. The ability to move came with the feeling of his body pressed down by heavy weights and a deep ache. Everything hurt and his head throbbed. Raising a hand to his head, Luffy slowly sat up and glanced down at himself. He froze. He wasn't wearing his new red shirt Hancock gave him. A ragged yellow vest covered his chest. Reaching down, Luffy tugged at the clothing, only to freeze a second time when a smooth chest stared back at him. No scar. No hard-earned muscles. A glance at his legs showed they were just as undefined as his chest and arms. Red shorts instead of the blue he was wearing a moment ago. Luffy reached up and found no hat on his head. Bolting upright, he felt around until he found the straw hat hanging on his back. Sighing in relief, Luffy pushed the hat onto his head. With the adrenaline from his near panic, Luffy raised himself up on his legs. The steep incline made his balance wobbly, but the extra height helped him to look around. Bodies lied everywhere, some stirring, others completely still. The black and white striped clothes and fishnet stockings seemed familiar, but his head was still fuzzy. It hurt to think, even more than normal. Shaking his head, Luffy pushed off the deck to leap towards the railing at the top of the incline he had been laying on. Halfway through the leap, he realized he wasn't going to make it. Scrambling, he stretched his arms out to the rail above him and hung there for a moment before his arm snapped him forward. He stretched a lot slower than he planned. Luffy's feet almost hit someone before the recoil snapped him towards the rail. The pirate captain idly stretched out his arm a bit before recoiling it back. There was a definite lack of speed. Casting his eyes out to find something else to stretch towards, Luffy's breath caught in his throat. A familiar sight of pirates fighting marines on an icy field greeted him. Marineford still haunted his nightmares, but it had never felt as real as now. The sight and sounds of battle mingled with the smell of ice and gunpowder, tainted with the copper tones of blood. He felt the rough texture of the wooden rail he grasped and towed the leather straps on the sandals he wore. The dull burn of oxygen-deprived lungs reminded Luffy he needed to breathe. Only after a deep breath did he wonder why he would need to breathe in a dream. Instinctively, Luffy looked for Ace. No nightmare of Marineford was complete without seeing his brother. A wall of ice blocked out the horizon. No buildings, no walls, and no execution platform. If Ace wasn't on this side, he must be on the other. Staggering back the way he came, Luffy tried to get a hold of the way his body worked. He stretched for the crow's nest, which lay fallen, almost on the other side of the ship. The power he pushed into his arms didn't make it that far. He let his hand fall short and grabbed a different handhold. The rubber man pushed off the deck as the recoil kicked in, launching him up and over the broken middle of the ship. He released his hands partway through the jump and free fell to the fallen mast. His sandals skid when he landed. Even his jumps weren't working as he expected. Trying to right himself, Luffy then scrambled to duck under the sword swinging for his head. Pushing off the mast, Luffy rammed his fist into the marine's gut. At least the rubber man's aim had been right on. Dashing up to the mast towards the front of the ship, Luffy continued to dodge and knock a few incoming marines away. Just before he reached the crow's nest, Luffy launched a whip attack to scatter the attackers. His aim might be okay, but his power was off. He was sure they should be flying farther than that. Standing on the top of the ship, Luffy found the execution platform with ease. He could see Ace, kneeling on the top. "Ace," he whispered. No matter how many times Luffy remembered this, it still didn't look right. His brother should be standing tall, or fighting, or something. Anything besides kneeling meekly with his head bowed. Just thinking about those swords coming down while Ace just knelt there made Luffy feel sick. What would have happened if those swords weren't knocked away? No, that wouldn't happen. Even in a dream, Luffy wouldn't let it. Breathing deep, the captain screamed his defiance. "Ace! Luffy!" Ace screamed back. Squinting hard, Luffy made sure his brother was looking up. Even if his brother couldn't see him, Luffy didn't want to see Ace's head bowed. "I'm going to rescue you," the Straw Hat captain yelled. This time for sure. Never had his nightmares started so early in this crazy fight. It might not be much, but there was enough time to get there. His dream body might be slow and heavy, but he could still do this. Where's Croco Boy?" Eva-chan asked, catching Luffy's attention. Oh no. No way. If Luffy was saving Ace, he was saving Whitebeard too. The old man might be strong, but Ace would never forgive himself if anything happened to Ace's pops while the Emperor was trying to rescue his son. It took 2 tries to get second gear to work. The one-arm technique he'd perfected during training didn't pump as much the first time he tried. He jumped to the icy ground and swung an arm through the gaping hole in the ice to create a wave. Ignoring the slight weakness that came from spray of ocean water, Luffy aimed for Whitebeard. Not wanting to fall short again, Luffy's kickoff almost shot him too far. Luffy had to stretch a bit to block Crocodile's hook. Instead of knocking the ex-Shibukai away, Luffy pinned the hook between the deck and his foot. Grabbing Crocodile's shirt, Luffy got right in his old enemy's face, his straw hat dangling on his back once more. "Whitebeard is Ace's nakama. I won't let you hurt him when I'm here." Crocodile's glare didn't bother him. Luffy met his stare and silently promised not to bother with a proper fight. He'd take Crocky down hard and fast if the jerk tried anything. There wasn't any time to play around right now. Luffy would kick the Sandman's butt another day. Knocking him out would do for now. Crocodile was the first to glacé away, eyeing the growing puddle under Luffy's feet. Luffy let him go and stepped off his hook, holding out a hand to help the man up. He dared the Sandman to try something, but Crocodile only smacked the hand away, grumbling as he picked himself up. Luffy grinned, knowing his old opponent wouldn't give any trouble right now. Crocodile was cruel, but he had his own kind of honor. The real Marineford battle had shown him that. Still, Luffy made sure to watch him with observational haki as he turned back to the battlefield. "That straw hat looks familiar, Straw Hat." Luffy blinked up at his brother's captain. Then grinned wider. "Ah, Shanks gave it to me to keep safe. It's my treasure." Whitebeard gave a slight nod at that before narrowing his eyes. "Why are you here, Straw Hat?" "I'm gonna rescue Ace," Luffy replied. "Leave that to us. Do you even know what's going on? What you face? What force you are going up Agabald?" Luffy scowled. He forgot about this. The old man's dismissal still pissed him off. "Of course I know," Luffy yelled. "I know all about this." Worry about yourself, old man. I'm gonna rescue Ace and become the Pirate King. Whitebeard's frown grew and Luffy recognized the weight of the Emperor's haki this time. It didn't matter. Luffy growled low and stood straighter. His eyes didn't budge. The old man wasn't stupid. Neither of them had time for this. The strongest man in the world smiled. What a cheeky brat, the old man laughed. Luffy just shook his head and jumped onto the railing. Do whatever you want, old man. I'm gonna be the one to rescue Ace. Luffy knew that for certain. He was the one who unlocked those cuffs. This time he was going to make sure Ace made it all the way out too. Luffy started to push off, only to change it into a spin to face Whitebeard again. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. The Straw Hat Captain met Whitebeard's gaze again. The Marines are moving the execution time up. We heard it on the talking snail on our way over. Is that so? Whitebeard replied. What exactly did they say? I can't remember. But they've got these mystery walls hidden in the ground all around here. Luffy gestured in a circle. When they pop up, they'll try to execute Ace. Well, after the lava guy tries to burn all the ice away. Those walls are really tough, so you have to go over them. But they're really high up and have a lot of cannons. He turned and pointed at the giant laying down near the platform. That guy's too heavy, so that part won't come up. Looking over his shoulder, Luffy met Whitebeard's gaze one last time. Don't die, old man. Thank you for the information, Straw Hat. Ace's captain replied with a grim face. Then he grinned, but you should worry about yourself, brat. Returning the grin, Luffy set his hat on his head and faced forward. Say that to me when we get out of here, old man. The rubber man pushed off the rail and landed on the ice, listening to Whitebeard's laughter. Luffy ran forward, knocking Marines down as he went. Stretching didn't happen as fast as he was used to, but it wasn't as bad as he first thought. Observation haki worked as well as it did after a long day of use, but his reaction time was still off. Armament was the worst. Instead of covering his arm from the elbow down, his first attempt only worked on his fist. It took far more effort and concentration than Luffy wanted. Gritting his teeth, he rocketed over a group of Marines and coated one side of his stretched leg for an axe attack before dodging a sensed attack. The explosion from the mist laser beam knocked him forward, but Luffy used the momentum to bury a fist in the next Marine's gut. Immediately he jumped back, missing a large hand from squashing him. Looking up, Luffy caught sight of Kuma Bartholomew. He bent backwards under the following arm sweep. Flipping to his feet, the rubber man went into second gear with a double arm pump. An armament-enforced jet pistol pushed Kuma back a few feet. The pirate captain focused on the warlord, avoiding any hits from the bear man's paws. It didn't take long until Luffy braced to receive an arm swipe from Kuma. The rubber man didn't try to dodge. The hit sent him flying fast enough he didn't have time to turn before he slammed into a body. Picking himself up, Luffy glanced at the mini crater and dismissed the matter. If he landed on a pirate, he would have helped, but a marine is just one less he has to fight. The hit he took sent him closer to his goal. Luffy only looked back to ensure Kuma wasn't following before moving forward again. Eva-chan was distracting the warlord just fine. Without second gear, Luffy continued to wade through the Marines. There were fewer pirates around him. The rubber man took advantage that gave him to get used to his Gatling gun and whip attacks. He tried different power levels until he could knock most Marines out with only a few Gatling hits. It was actually starting to be a lot of fun when his observational haki screamed at him. Luffy scrambled out of the way of a moving cloud that reformed into a scowling face. This time Smokey wasn't going to get him with that stupid sea stone jeet. Going straight into second gear, the pirate captain coated his knuckles and sent a jet pistol at Smoker's arm. The hit landed, staggering the Marine back a few paces, but he kept his grip on the jeet. Luffy ignored the surprise in the Marine captain's eyes and continued on the assault, keeping his body out of range of the weapon. The smoke man kept up with him, but using armament haki kept the logia user from getting so many hits in. Any other time, Luffy would relish the ability to finally match Smokey, but Ace was waiting on him. A well-aimed jet bazooka tossed Smoker away and down, giving both space to breathe. You won't get any farther, Straw Hat, the Marine captain declared, adjusting his hold on the jeet. Luffy grinned, knowing Smoker was completely wrong. He crouched, ready to counter anything the smoke man could throw at him. Enough, an imperious voice demanded. Smoker dodged the high kick sent his way, bracing himself to face two opponents. Boa Hancock, Smoker calmly stated. What do you think you are doing? Silence. Hancock commanded, nose in the air. I will not tolerate this a moment longer. The Snake Empress turned, dismissing the Marine's presence from her mind. Stalking towards Straw Hat, she regally flipped her hair over her shoulder. Her pet snake slithered ahead and wrapped around behind Straw Hat. Luffy's grin widened and he dropped out of second gear. When she reached the rubber man, Hancock leaned forward and pulled a key discreetly from her dress. Hidden from immediate view by her pet snake, the warlord handed it to her fellow pirate captain. I obtained the key to Ace's handcuffs, Luffy, Hancock simpered. Shishishi, Luffy laughed and threw his arms around her twice. Thank you Hancock, he exclaimed giving her a tight squeeze. The Snake Empress was always so helpful. He still wasn't going to marry her. Using the snake as a launch pad, Luffy left his friend behind. The surrounding Marines, still stunned at the beautiful warlord's presence, were knocked down easily. Smoker's shouts and Hancock's angry yells brought another loud laugh to Luffy. The laugh cut off as a group of zombies tried to dogpile him. The captain punched one away, dodged under two, and swept two others away with a side kick. Luffy created a little more distance before stepping into second gear. He couldn't waste time on the vegetable head. Moria's high-pitched laughter cut through the battlefield. Sprinting towards the large warlord, the rubber man leapt into the air. He quickly twisted his arm tight and bit his thumb. Gear, third. Right at the apex of his jump, Luffy started spinning as he blew into his bone. Giant screwdriver, he muttered, applying as much armament haki to his giant knuckles as possible. It only covered the middle two, but combined with the twisting arm and his body's spin, the attack worked like he wanted. Moria had seen Luffy coming, but waited to dodge at the last minute. Too bad he didn't realize the Straw Hat captain knew observational haki this time. The attack landed right in the jugular. Luffy immediately released third gear, but had to quickly change his follow-up plan when his body snapped into mini mode. Luffy growled. He had fixed this problem already. Stupid dream. Seeing where his little body was landing, Luffy coated his toes in armament and shifted slightly. The Shadow Man's chalked gurgles changed to a shrill screech when the small feet slammed into his eyes. Taking advantage of the ice dust from Moria's fall, Mini Luffy hopped off the thrashing warlord and dashed away. By the time the air cleared around him, Straw Hat was back to normal, but his direction was a bit off. Skidding a few feet, Luffy apologized to the pirate he almost ran over while he punched out the two attacking Marines with a quick pistol. Luffy took a moment to breathe and reorient. He was closer to the wall on the right, Whitebeard that way, and Ace over there. Ace's giant friend was still down. He must be hurt bad. Or maybe he's pretending. Right, pretending to be down so the giant can keep the mystery wall section down. Wow, what an awesome guy. Luffy couldn't wait for Ace to introduce them. Straw Hat, a desperate voice called. Huh. Luffy stuck a finger in his ear and fished for any loose earwax. Finding a clump, the rubber man scraped it off his ear canal and pulled his finger back out. The captain turned the newly cleaned ear to the screaming pirate. What? You need to get out of here. The man screamed, sounding like he had said this a few times. It's become Moria's personal graveyard. Each person who goes down adds to his army, and any we hit just keep going no matter how much we maim them. Luffy nodded as he flicked the earwax away. Those zombies were really annoying that way. Ever since you showed up, Moria's been screaming for you. If he sees you, it will be too late. We need to go now. The pirate reached out to grab Straw Hat's arm, intending to pull the rookie captain out of the front lines. Wait, Luffy commanded. The pirate speaking and three others nearby froze at the unexpected authority in his voice. Are you talking about that Moria? He asked in a lighter tone. Luffy pointed back the way he came where the dust was finally settling enough to see damage. The gurgles, thrashing body, and annoying whines all added to a pretty sad sight for a mighty warlord. A few brave souls started snickering, which started others to chuckling. The Marines trying to treat the warlord, while remaining too terrified to approach, pushed many surrounding pirates over the edge to full-blown laughter. Luffy chuckled a bit before he caught sight of the execution stand. All right, Luffy called, clapping twice for good luck. The group turned their attention his way, but Luffy didn't notice. It's time to help Ace. Pirates in earshot yelled their enthusiasm and started wading through the remaining zombies immediate long enough to knock a nearby marine out before following. The shambling crowd of undead lingering was a bit troublesome. Luffy didn't have time to beat them all down. A wave of water washed over the remaining zombies. They fell lifeless to the ground. Jinbei pushed another wave of seawater over the withering, complaining Shadow Man, draining him of any extra power he might have held on to. "Thanks, Jinbei," Luffy yelled before turning back to the awesome giant. Halfway there, a feeling of dread slammed into him. He knew the two marines fighting him weren't important, and glanced around for the danger as he moved away from the spot his haki warned him about. A long-range cutting technique zoomed past him. The rubber man hardly had time to bend out of the way. One of the marines attacking him was not as lucky. Ignoring the falling marine, Luffy scrambled away from a second slash. Any marines left near Straw Hat cleared the area, giving the pirate time to focus on the warlord swordsman. This was one opponent Luffy didn't want to face. Haki was Zoro's goal, not Luffy's. Mihawk was difficult to predict. Only his experience sparring with Rayleigh helped Luffy keep up with the flurry of slash attacks. The rubber man kept as much distance as possible between them. With his armament Haki unreliable, the captain dared not block the attacks. Luffy needed the distance to ensure he could dodge everything. This dream continued to mess with his speed. His body moved so slow. Luffy rebounded off the wall and slid under another slash. Didn't Haki get bored of using the same attack all the time? He weaved through two more attacks and then sidestepped a falling marine. Wait, falling marine. The wall behind Luffy was collapsing outward. The marine on the wall hadn't been quick enough to evacuate and fell from the top. Another marine still clung to a turret as the wall fell towards the battlefield. The Straw Hat captain lost track of that marine when he was forced to duck under another slash from Mihawk. Forget Haki. Luffy was getting bored from all these slashes. Since he couldn't fight the warlord, there was only one option left. Leaping over another attack, the rubber man started bouncing off the falling rubble while dodging more attacks from the swordsman. Once the air was clear enough, both his hands grasped the roof of closest building for his slingshot. The captain used all the power second gear could give him to rocket out of the area. He grabbed the corner of a building beyond the main crowd of marines and swung around it, trying to keep up his speed but lower the power behind it. The rubber man continued to slingshot around buildings until he could land without making a crater. Carefully pulling himself onto the next rooftop, Luffy let go of second gear and dropped to the rooftals. It was hard to catch your breath quietly, but the captain tried. He needed to be a ninja, a sneaky ninja who even old Hawkeye couldn't see. Shishishi, he couldn't help but laugh at the image of a ninja Luffy. The pirate watched the nearby marines scrambling around. The damaged wall was pretty far away now. Nobody seemed to be coming through, but the way the white-clad men acted you couldn't tell. Then again, there was an army of pirates on the other side. Maybe their panic was normal. Taking a break was a bad idea. As Luffy's breathing got under control, the rubber man realized how tired he was. Frowning, the pirate looked around. Ninja Luffy was funny to think about, but he really wasn't good at sneaking. Sanji caught him every time he tried to sneak more snacks. But this was for Ace. Luffy was behind the walls. Even when the mystery walls are raised, Luffy would be on Ace's side. Why was the execution platform still so far away? If he fought his way through by himself, he might not make it in time. But if he tried to sneak, he might be too slow. Arg, he hated thinking. Alright, he decided. He was going to reach Ace. If the Marines saw him, oh well. Luffy would still rescue his brother. There were so many Marines running around, and no one noticed the Straw Hat captain on the roof. Luffy couldn't help but laugh again. This was just like the Marine base Mary landed in. Sanji cooked some really good food there. The rubber man licked his lips. Would the Marines have a kitchen nearby? No, no, no. Luffy shook his head hard. He needed to rescue Ace. Then he could find the kitchen with Ace and eat some meat. A great idea came from remembering the last Marine kitchen he snuck into. He could run around and still be sneaky. Scanning the ground around him, Luffy chuckled one more time before turning on second gear. He needed speed for this to work. A lone Marine huddled in a small alley, away from the crowds running in the street. The rubber man jetted over to the coward, knocked him out, and dragged him back to the rooftop in record time. Striping the shirt, pants, and cap off the Marine, Luffy put the uniform on over his current clothes. He tore off the bottom of the too long pants. He had to make a new hole in the leather belt to cinch it around his waist. With the cap shading his face and the straw hat resting under the too large shirt, no one would know it was him. Shishishi, Luffy laughed as he hopped back over to the alleyway and joined the rush of Marines in the main street. They were all running in different directions, so he didn't bother following anyone. Luffy just ran in the direction of the platform he had seen from the roof. The path wasn't a straight one. Luffy wanted to stay away from the wall just in case he got stuck on the wrong side again, but the fort was confusing. Marineford's buildings were large and the pirate captain had to run around them or go up or down a flight of stairs several times. Luffy shrugged off the delays and just kept moving, until the ground moved out from under him. Buildings crumbled, Marines panicked, and the pirate captain fell to the ground to keep from tumbling down the street that was suddenly a steep hill. He dashed out of the way of the building that tried to crush him but ignored the rubble that bounced off him. Luffy loved being made of rubber. As soon as the ground stopped moving, he was off again. Old Man Whitebeard was in the fight and could take care of himself for now. Ace was the one running out of time. Oof. Luffy grunted as he slammed into a Marine standing in the middle of the next walkway. He picked himself up, grumbled about stupid Marines, and started to move around the knockdown guy. Straw Hat. A high-pitched voice hissed in surprise. Luffy scowled. He was this close. One more stairway and he might be able to see Ace on the platform. The voice was pretty quiet. There weren't many Marines around. Maybe he could knock the Marine out before anyone else noticed. Glancing over to do just that, Luffy stopped in his tracks. No. How could you get over here? No way could you come up with such a brilliant plan as I created. The mutterings changed from surprised disbelief to utter dismay. Luffy snickered. This guy was always so funny. Yo, Candlehead, the captain greeted his fellow prison escapee. He helped pull the ex-Baroque worker up. Mr. 3 dusted off his uniform and placed the cap back over his distinct hairstyle. As soon as the cap was back on, Luffy grabbed his arm and started off again. Wait, where are you taking me? The escaped convict cried, trying to keep up. To rescue Ace, Luffy called back. He'd have to get even closer to the platform to rocket over with the wax guy, but Luffy wouldn't be able to keep up with the light guy Admiral with his current speed. Having backup was perfect. If the Admiral broke Hancock's key, Candlehead can make another one again. Stopping abruptly, Luffy ignored the grumblings when his companion slammed into him. While the man rubbed his squashed nose, the pirate captain dug out the key Hancock gave him. Here, he thrust the key at Mr. 3. When the man took it, he explained. It's Ace's. Make a new one if it's broken. Instructions given, Luffy grabbed the candle man's hand and dragged him off again. The future Pirate King didn't listen to any of his new companion's protests. He just kept running. Up the stairway, around 2 buildings, down a short flight and then up another. He was nearly there when the sky turned red. Luffy clenched his teeth at the sight of the magma fists in the air. He remembered how they rained down on the pirates in the frozen bay. The rubber man didn't have much time left to get to Ace. The duo reached a point where there was nowhere else to go except farther away from the platform, or down into the barren courtyard filled with Marines and the 3 admirals. Why won't you listen to me? Mr. 3's whining finally registered with Luffy. You say something? The pirate captain asked. Yes, the ex-convict yelled, then slapped his free hand over his mouth when he realized how loud his voice was. Luffy frowned. Well, what is it? We're kind of in a hurry. The candle man growled. Of course, we are. But you've been going the wrong way. The entrance to the platform is over that way. He pointed back to a building several hundred yards away. How do you peering over Mr. 3's shoulder to try and see what the ex-con was gesturing to. Mr. 1 had floor plans of many of the major marine bases, including Marineford. I guess being a warlord helped with collecting intelligence on the. Luffy tuned the man out and glanced back to the courtyard. The Light Admiral was fighting the Blue Fire Bird. Iceman was taking out most of the pirates climbing over the awesome giant. Luffy couldn't see Akainu, but there was no way the Lava Man wasn't down there. Garp was sitting up on the platform with Ace and the Birdhead guy. The 2 no-name Marines were lifting their swords as Birdhead yelled into his transponder snail. The execution of Portgas D. Ace. Luffy didn't even scream. Within 2 seconds he had knocked out any weak-willed marines within his current range of Conqueror's Haki, flipped into second gear, and rocketed toward the platform. 2 sand blades hit the platform at the same time the 2 would-be executioners hit the ground after an overdose of Conqueror's Haki. Luffy tossed Candlehead at Ace while planting a jet pistol into Birdhead's face and launching an axe attack at his Gramps. Only when both high-ranked marines blocked his attacks did the pirate yell, "Don't touch my brother." Luffy didn't give them a chance to reply, just knocked Garp off the platform with an armament-coated jet whip and started a Gatling attack at the other old guy. When the marines started to glow and grow, Luffy bit his thumb and landed next to Ace and Candlehead. The wax man wasn't knocked out but was struggling to stand. Luffy started to blow air into his bone. Gear, third. He diverted Birdhead's attack but didn't expect the ice attack from the side. Yelling in pain at the spear of ice stuck in his side, Luffy knocked 2 other spears away, saving the wax man currently trying to unlock Ace's sea stone cuffs while balancing on a crumbling execution platform. Straw Hat moved the air in his bones to his ribs, then sucked up air to balloon out as large as he could for the second attack from Birdhead. As the fist bounced off his ballooned middle, he heard a cry of triumph from Mr. 3. "You idiot!" Ace roared as he surrounded the trio in flames while the platform crumbled beneath them. Luffy dropped third gear and snapped down into mini Luffy mode. "You shouldn't be here." The huge grin on his older brother's face didn't match the stern tone of voice. "You're always such a reckless little brother," Fire Fist declared. "Ace!" Luffy cried, tears streaming down his face. The 2 didn't get another chance to talk as both were distracted by a storm of small lava fists. Author's note: the hidden walls were not up when Luffy went over the wall. That happened later, but there were still stone walls before the hidden ones were raised. This section took way too much abuse from Hawkeye's attacks. How is the pacing of this going? I'm not interested in dragging the whole Marineford arc out, but I hope I'm not going too fast. Reader replies, as of January 23, 2021. Smiley Nami, I got the ding of a submitted review just as I was clicking the button to add a new chapter. Congrats on making the cut to have a reply in the chapter and thanks for the vote. Kyle Katarn 77 thanks for the PM vote. I think you are the only one that specified keeping Whitebeard alive. I'm having trouble voting for saving Whitebeard. It would feel nice, but his death made all the difference in the political structure change of the 4 emperors of the sea during the time gap. I also think Whitebeard would rather die with dignity than hang in there as a disabled person unable to keep his territory safe. So, at the end he's either dead, or still an emperor who can take care of his territory. Not sure if I'm creative enough to complete rethink how the 2-year gap would be after that kind of butterfly effect. In the darkest of nights, loved your review and thanks for the vote. I forgot about the harem aspect some time travel One Piece fix try. I think I willingly tried to block those from memory. Girls boys falling for Luffy. Sure, but he's be oblivious. Luffy having any kind of self-started romantic inclination. Feels like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Tigrezi 25 thanks for the vote. Not sure if you want to keep Ace or Whitebeard alive, but I can see which way you are leaning. Chunky Funky Monkey, thanks so much for the feedback. I'm really glad there's someone else out there who want to read without the Japanese terms. I like Japanese, but when you are going to translate something, the point is to not keep using Japanese. It's a bit grating to see it used in something English-only speakers are supposed to read. Like when you try to define a word using the word in the definition. Luffy changed back to normal size in the middle of dodging the lava fists. A few clipped his limbs, and one came very close to burning his face, but Luffy managed to stay away from most of them. His grin widened. Then Candlehead screamed. The pirate captain turned to see Mr. 3 clutching his wrist, staring at the empty air where his left hand should have been. The rubber man grabbed the man's shirt and pulled him out of the way of another attack that would have taken a leg as well. Grimacing, Luffy scanned the area for a safe place to stash his friend. There were none. Only a handful of pirates had made it farther than the courtyard entrance. Ace shot a large column of fire below them, clearing the area the 3 pirates landed in. Luffy held Mr. 3 over his shoulder, placing his back to Ace as he got ready to fight. Twice Candlehead helped free Ace. Losing a hand was not okay. No way was Luffy going to let more harm come to the wax man, even in a dream. The two brothers did not get much of a breather. Most of the cannon fodder was still out from Luffy's Conqueror's Haki, but that still left a few dozen stronger marines. Akainu was being distracted by a few Whitebeard pirates, but Aokiji was heading right for them. The Iceman built a wall as he walked, protecting the fallen marines while Ace and Luffy fought off the ones still standing. "I'm afraid this is as far as you go," the Admiral stated when he reached 10 paces away from the pirates. "Men, back up Ace and Straw Hat with all you've got." A roaring affirmation filled the air at Whitebeard's declaration. In the showdown with the Ice General, no one reacted to the battle cry. The standoff may have gone on forever, but another lava fist interrupted the standoff. The two brothers scrambled out from under the giant hand that tried to flatten them. Aokiji followed up with a flurry of ice crystals aimed at both brothers and a lunge for Fire Fist with his ice sword. Luffy pushed off the ground and back-flipped over the ice attack, and then spun around another lava punch Akainu launched at him. The rubber man almost lost hold of his friend when he landed. Adjusting the wax man's position on his shoulder, Luffy dodged another attack from the Red Dog and lost his balance when the kick turned into a river of lava that whipped towards him. The Straw Hat Captain twisted and jumped, ducked and rolled. His shoulder ached, his side was soaked from blood from the ice spear from earlier, and his limbs were starting to tremor like it did just before Eva's mystery shot wore off the first time. The baggy uniform pulled over his normal clothes didn't help the situation either. Mr. 3 likely had a concussion at this point on top of his lost hand. Still, Luffy continued to avoid Akainu's attacks. He had no energy left for any counter-offense. The entire world shrunk to be just him and the lava man. Luffy's rubber body was getting slower by the second, until a final wave of lava came at him. His legs froze when he tried to hop out of the way. There was no way to dodge it. A wall of seawater crashed in front of him, hardening some of the lava and pushing the lava wave to the side. The Straw Hat Captain would have been a goner without the timely intervention. The rubber man expected Jinbei, but a smaller fishman with a bigger head stood next to the rookie pirate. This must be one of Ace's nakama. Luffy's thank you caught in his throat as the world around him pulsed. His vision grayed, and when he managed to clear his eyes, Luffy found himself laying on the ground. The fishman was fighting Akainu a bit of distance away, and two sets of hands were trying to pull Mr. 3 from Luffy's grasp. His body tensed when he tried to shove them away, but nothing moved. He didn't realize his ears had stopped working until sound started to filter back in. Straw Hat. One voice cried, "We've got you, Ace's little bro." Another soothed, "Come on, man. Just let the dude go," a third grumbled. Luffy managed to twist his neck to see 4 Whitebeard pirates around him. One kept tugging at Mr. 3 while the other 2 were trying to pry his hands off the wax man. Frowning, Luffy concentrated on relaxing his hands. It still took a moment before they obeyed his commands. When his hands were loose enough, 2 of the pirates whisked Mr. 3 off while the other 2 lifted Luffy off the ground. The rubber man tried to protest, but his body just twitched. His voice came out a gargled mess. "Don't worry, Straw Hat. We've got you. The commanders are taking care of the marines." Sure enough, 2 others were fighting Akainu alongside his fishman rescuer. Ace had a man with swords blocking Aokiji's attacks while the ice man dodged several bullets being fired from somewhere. When a red-haired guy who was shorter than Luffy joined in, Ace gave a shout and wave before turning to check on Luffy. The moment Ace's eyes met Luffy's frustrated gaze, the older brother lost his easy grin. "Luffy!" he cried. Luffy couldn't even call back. Fire Fist nodded at something the swordsman shouted to him and then turned away from the battle and dashed towards the 2 pirates carrying Luffy away. "What happened?" Ace asked the 2. "No clue. Your little brother just collapsed when Namur joined the fight against Akainu. It took us a few minutes just to get him to let go of his friend. You'd think he was frozen or something." "Hand him over," Ace demanded. The 2 pirates didn't argue. Ace scooped up Luffy, holding him tight to his chest as they picked up the pace. The rubber man didn't like this. He couldn't see anything except Ace's chest and a small patch of sky. Marines. Fire Fist Ace cannot be allowed to escape. His brother, Straw Hat Luffy, grew up with Ace, and is the son of Revolutionary Dragon. Both of these pirates must be stopped here and now. Don't lose heart. They cannot leave this island. Shouts of support, shock, dismay, and denial rose from all around. Luffy grit his teeth and managed to push away from Ace enough to see a new wave of Marines joining the fight. Once more he tried to move, but he only jerked to the side and messed up Ace's balance. "Don't worry, Lu. I've got you now. You can rest now, it's all going to be okay," Ace murmured. "Liar." Luffy tried to retort, but it came out as a weak growl. "Ace." Someone with a loud voice called from in front of them. Luffy still couldn't see much with the way Ace was holding him, but the rubber man felt Ace's breath catch. "You guys," Ace smothered a sniffle and shook his head. Luffy growled and focused on getting his stupid body to move again. First the dream slows him down, now it stops him from moving altogether. He just rescued Ace. How is he supposed to get him out of here alive if he can't even talk right? Straw Hat Boy. Eva. Perfect. Luffy tried to call out to his friend, but he bet only Ace could hear him. Ace tensed up as the drag queen neared, but the fireman had seen the purple afro fall from the sky with his little brother. "Ah, I see," the drag queen hummed when he got closer. "I warned you the hormones would only work for a short time, but it seems they wore off quite a bit sooner than I had calculated. You've overdone it, Straw Hat Boy." "No way." Luffy scowled. Then he grinned at his friend. "We're just getting started. Right, Eva. Now, don't worry, Straw Hat Boy. You have done very well. You have rescued your brother and must rest. Your body cannot handle more than you have already put it through." "What are you talking about?" Ace snapped. "What's wrong with Luffy? Straw Hat Boy has gone to great lengths to rescue you, Fire Fist Ace. His love for his brother has pushed himself well past his limits." When he was in Impel Down, Luffy finally managed to snap his arm out. Clutching on the magenta collar he had grabbed, Luffy glared at his friend. Ace didn't need to know this stuff. And they weren't out of danger yet. What was up with all this talking? The pirate captain needed them to fix this so he could make sure Ace got out of here. "Eva, I still need to save Ace." His friend's face scrunched in confusion. Straw Hat CE. Luffy tried to shake his head, but it came out as a jerky wobble instead. The two had been running during the conversation but stopped when Luffy grabbed Eva. Now it felt like they were moving again, but he knew Ace was standing still. His vision blurred, but the pirate captain ignored it. He tried once last time. "If Ace dies here," he breathed. "After all I've done." Luffy tried to put all his determination, the knowledge that the fight wasn't over with, and his desperate need to help into his eyes. His vision cleared and he locked that gaze with the revolutionary. "I'd rather die," he cried. "Luffy, you rubber-brained idiot," Ace screamed. His brother shifted him and all Luffy could see his older brother's angry face. "You can't say stuff like that." Eva seemed to agree. "You complete fool," the revolutionary yelled. "I've told you before, if I let you die, I'll never be able to face Dragon again. No more, Straw Hat Boy. Another injection could kill you." "What?" Ace pulled Luffy farther away from the purple-haired revolutionary. "No way. What have you done to my little brother?" Ace put a few feet of distance between them and glared at Ivankov. "Ace." Luffy's low voice was serious. Ace looked down again. "Eva saved me." The brothers' eyes held an entire conversation. Ace looked back at the drag queen, a conflicted expression on his face. Sighing, the fireman bowed as low as he could while holding on to Luffy. "Thank you for taking care of my foolish little brother." Eva tsked and waved away the thank you. "Your little brother did the most work. His determination is extraordinary." Ace stood back up and nodded, starting to retreat again. "No," Luffy cried, throwing all he had to stretch towards where he thought the drag queen was. His hand hit empty air and snapped back painfully. Ace swayed with the recoil but didn't stop. Lu, whatever Ace might have said was lost when pirates and marines alike cried out. "Pops!" were the Whitebeard's cries of horror. "Whitebeard is..." The marines yelled in disbelief and awe. Ace's face snapped away from Luffy and gave a wordless cry at whatever he saw. "They hit Pops!" someone cried. Fire Fist took 2 steps in a new direction, then jerked back and stopped. He glanced down at Luffy. Growling, Ace turned back to the way they were going, picking up the pace. "Ace, I need to get back to Eva. I have to fight," Luffy choked off, coughing hard. Swallowing, he looked back up at Ace. His vision started to blur again. Shaking his head to clear it, Straw Hat growled. "Stupid little brother. What are you talking about?" Ace grinned down at him. "You've grown a lot, but I'm still the older brother. I'll make sure we get out of this. Luffy closed his eyes against a wave pain that rushed over his body. His side was screaming. No, he cried, shoving his brother away. He barely felt when he crashed into the ground. When the world came back into focus, he realized he'd landed on his good side. Panting, the rubber man pushed himself up, and met his brother's eyes. You've never been able, another coughing fit interrupted him. This time it didn't stop until a large blood clot hit the ground. He breathed deep while Ace frantically asked him if he was alright. The pirate captain glared at the 2nd Division commander. You've never been able to run from a fight. Not once. The fireman gaped at him for a moment. Ace, I'm not losing you again. Luffy cried. I'll fight until I die or we're both out of here. Straw Hat's vision grayed out again and he was barely able to catch himself from crashing back to the ground. He clenched his fists and bit his lip to bring back his focus. The pirate captain pushed himself up again, gazing around for Eva. With his body like this, he couldn't do anything without his friend's help. A ship was nearby, almost blocking out the sight of Whitebeard fighting a horde of Marines. Before he could find the revolutionary, he felt Ace's hand ruffling his hair. Why are you making things so much more difficult? Fire Fist grumbled. Luffy glanced at him, watching Ace pinch his forehead. You're being such an idiot. I know you're strong. You rescued me, didn't you? Haven't you done enough? The rubber man shook his head. No. Ace met his gaze again. I'm not watching you die protecting me. I won't let it happen. Not one more time. This dream was turning out like all the others. Luffy refused to see it end like the others. It was his dream. He could do what he wanted. Just as he turned away to look for Eva again, Luffy heard his brother whisper one last phrase. I'm sorry, Lu. Then a fist crashed down on his head, sending him back to the ground and into total darkness. That hit should not have knocked Luffy out cold. Not even when the kid was 12 and rather pathetic. Ace kind of hoped it would knock some sense into the rubber-brained idiot, but this proved his little brother really was in far worse shape than the fireman had thought. Then again, Ace himself wasn't in the best shape. His entire body ached, a bone-deep pain that radiated through his muscles. He swore even his hair hurt. They never pulled him out for torture in prison. Too much risk when they wanted him for their execution, not information. But the guards worked him over every time they came to give him the daily sludge they called food. His stomach protested at the thought of eating. Ace felt like he could eat the entire pantry on the Moby and at the same time he was fighting not to puke. Being stuck in one position for weeks on end gave him a permanent crick in the neck. And the less said about his shoulders the better. His arms still tingled with that painful numbness which told him they still hadn't gotten used to a normal blood flow yet. But after being under sea stone for so long, having the cuffs off made a world of difference. Ace felt like he could take on the world with the energy boost being free gave him. Of course, 4 Marines broke through the lines just as Ace handed his little brother over to the medics. In a way, it was good timing. Fire Fist needed to let off some of the anger boiling inside him. Too bad the Marines didn't last long. A quick glance back showed the field medic had stripped off that ridiculous Marine top and pants. Smirking, Ace wondered how the old geezer felt when he finally saw one of his grandsons in uniform. Thinking of Gramps was a lot better than dwelling on the sight of Luffy's bloody side and limp limbs. Then another Marine broke through and the fireman focused back on the fight. 3 Marines down, pulling one of his Whitebeard brothers out from under a fatal strike, and 1 Vice Admiral defeated later, Ace was in the thick of the fighting. It's good to see you so lively, son. Stepping back from the body he just knocked out, Ace looked up. Pops was only a few paces away, a small calm from fighting surrounding the Emperor as his crewmates protected their father's back and the Marines regrouped in the front. Ace sent a thick wall of fire down that side, giving the Marines another hurdle to cross before they could attack the old man again. With a barrier in place, Ace faced his captain and knelt. Thank you so very much for everything. Bowing to the ground, Ace yelled his gratitude in the politest manner Makino had taught him. With tears gathering in his eyes, Ace recalled just how much Edward Newgate had done for him, not just going to war for him. Nothing he could say would express just how much he was grateful to the only man he called father. Ace, have I been a good father? Whitebeard's voice was soft but traveled over the battlefield with no difficulty. Tears spilled down his face as he nodded, trying to answer through the lump in his throat. The best. Cheers of agreement rose up around them. Ace glanced up at his captain, his heart warming at the gentle smile on his father's face. "That's all I could ask for," the living legend intoned. Whitebeard. Ace leapt to his feet at the angry voice, watching as Admiral Akainu stepped through his fire barrier like it was a soft fabric curtain. "Ace." His father's stern voice stopped him from taking more than a step in the Admiral's direction. Still, Fire Fist didn't let his gaze wander from the lava man. "Make sure that brother of yours makes it out of here." Whitebeard chuckled. "The cheeky brat's got spunk." Ace knew a dismissal when he heard one. Finally taking his eyes off Akainu, the fireman protested. "Pops." Slamming his bisinto into the ground, Whitebeard yelled his command. "Men, it's time to go home." Nothing more was said as the Emperor met Akainu's lava fist with a centralized quake. Snarling, Ace pushed his fire wall out, dispersing it in a wide-range attack. The would-be reinforcements were knocked back, and several didn't move to get back up. He sent a thinner wall out to one side, forcing Marines to back off while the Whitebeard pirates retreated. Moving further into the front lines, the 2nd Division commander focused on helping his brothers get away so he could ignore his father's battle. That's where he really wanted to be. Most of the other commanders were doing the same as Fire Fist, even those engaging the admirals. Ace watched Jozu slam the Ice Admiral away and dash towards the nearest cluster of Whitebeard pirates. 3 jumped up as he swiped his arm around. With practiced ease, his brothers launched off Jozu's arm, retreating over the heads of several Marine lines. The 3rd Division commander turned back just in time to block another ice attack, deflecting the projectiles towards the Marines fighting the remaining 2 Whitebeard pirates. Pushing back against Aokiji, Jozu moved the battle away while Speedy Jiru appeared and used his spear as the next launching pad. The Marines were ready for the overhead retreat this time and launched a barrage of weaponry at the 2 crewmates in the air. Ace burned clear the side closest to him while a jet of water drowned the other side. "Ace!" a deep voice bellowed. Jinbei, seeing his friend appear earlier was a huge relief. Despite the warlord's reassurances, Ace didn't quite believe the government would let the fishman leave Impel down when this whole thing finished. "Got tired of waiting for the Marines to let you out, huh? Your brother gave me a chance I could not pass by." Moving to cover Jinbei's flank, Fire Fist smiled. This is what he missed the most in prison, helping family and knowing they had your back too. "How is Luffy doing?" Ace winced. He hadn't forgotten his brother, but the fireman did get distracted. "I left him with the field medics. He's exhausted and needed his side patched up, but knowing Luffy he'll be fine once he wakes up and eats some meat." He chuckled at the thought of Luffy drooling over a huge plate of meat. Maybe they could catch a Sea King just for him. "He didn't tell you." The warlord's voice had an edge of panic Fire Fist didn't like. "Tell me what?" Ace snapped. "I'm sure it'll be fine, Ace-san." Jinbei backtracked. Knocking back another Marine and spinning a fire blast around them for a breather, the fireman rounded on his friend. "Tell me what, Jinbei?" The fishman hesitated. "The purple-haired guy said something about an injection, but I didn't have time to get details. If you know something, I need you to tell me." Jinbei replied with a water kick. Ace ducked under it and the attack took out the 2 Marines charging the 2nd Division commander from behind. Then he set 3 other Marines closing in on fire. Turning back to his friend, he watched the Son of the Sea send a tidal wave to wash a man away. It caught several others on its way out. Still the fishman said nothing. Jinbei shifted from one foot to the other as the fireman stared him down. "Please," Ace finally pled. "If it's important, I need to know. So I can help Luffy." With a sigh, Jinbei stated the tale. "I don't know everything, but while we were sailing, Ivankov said something." The warlord explained what he knew as they fought their way back to where Ace last saw the medics. His little brother was on his last legs even before he left Impel down. Ivankov gave Straw Hat something that let him ignore his wounds, but it would only last so long. When it wore off, Straw Hat would be out for the count for at least a week. Jinbei and the revolutionary lost track of Luffy when he was fighting Mihawk, and Ivankov had worried the hormones had worn off. They both saw the boy rescue Ace and were shocked at the blast of Conqueror's haki. Ivankov believed that to be the end of the rookie pirate's strength. When Whitebeard revealed the hidden coated ship, both had used the chance to enter the courtyard. They rushed in, expecting Luffy to need a rescue himself, only to watch Straw Hat hold out against Akainu while carrying a comrade away and let Ivankov run ahead to help Luffy fight. Jinbei hadn't seen the revolutionary again, but feared that if Luffy was down, the consequences must have caught up. While the injection allowed Straw Hat to ignore his wounds, they didn't disappear. All the pain would compound and hit harder when the hormones wore off. All Ace could think was his brother really was a reckless, crazy, and foolish idiot. And Ace felt like the worst S in the world because knowing how far Luffy went made him feel so happy he could burst. Fighting was getting to be a bit more difficult with all these stupid tears getting in the way. But they just wouldn't stop. The tears just kept growing each time he passed another crewmate or ally and got a happy greeting or friendly, "Glad to have you back." Another ship broke through the wall, Scordo standing tall on the deck, screaming his apologies while ordering his men to back up those withdrawing from the war. When he caught sight of Ace, Scordo's grin widened. "About time you started helping out. All of Whitebeard's sons are now here." The fireman lost his fight with holding back his tears. Ace knew of Scordo's past. The allied pirate captain's hatred of Roger was legendary. If anyone in Whitebeard's crew or allies was going to have an issue with Ace's blood relations, Scordo was number one on Fire Fist's list. But his friend was telling him Whitebeard is the only father of Ace's that mattered. Nothing was going to keep these tears of happiness away. Whitebeard's down. Or not. That phrase cut through the tears easily. Fear jumped into his throat as he followed everyone's gaze and saw Pops down on one knee, a smoking crater in his chest. Akainu was fighting off 3 commanders as the rest of the battlefield froze a moment in disbelief. Then the Marines rallied and the pirates who didn't recover fast enough were knocked back. Ace worked fast to save several around him from cowardly attacks while their attention was on the fallen emperor. Marco was still engaged with Kizaru. Jozu was half frozen as Izo and Vista fended off Aokiji. Haruta was running interference with a few allies to give Whitebeard time to recover. The Emperor was clutching his chest. And the Red Dog was laughing. "Face it, Whitebeard. Your time is long past. You're nothing but a washed-up old man playing house." Those words froze Ace. He forgot the retreat, forgot Luffy. The son of Edward Newgate could only see his Pops, wounded and in pain, and hear his attackers' taunts. Akainu knocked away the last commander. The Admiral slowly advanced on Whitebeard. "Finally realized who you picked a fight with, EH. Running away like a mutt with its tail tuck is all a cowardly pirate crew like yours can do right now." Fire flared between the two. "Take that back." Luffy was not happy right now. First, he got a nightmare of Marineford just as he made it back to the Thousand Sunny. Next, he had to fight his way to Ace with a really weird body that moved and reacted all wrong. Then he still didn't make it out with Ace before being knocked out, by his own brother. Now he was waking up, still in his nightmare. He hadn't opened his eyes yet, but the feel of ice beneath him, the smells in the air, and the sounds of battle couldn't be anything else but Marineford's war. How could you wake up when you were dreaming? This was the second time he started consciousness with the battle around him. Was this the same dream or a new nightmare? Blinking open his eyes, Luffy saw purple. "Eva," the boy captain croaked. "Straw Hat Boy." Eva's face come into view, quickly changing from happy to angry. "You foolish boy. Beating an admiral in your condition. You could have been killed. How could they vast dragon again?" Eva gave him no chance to answer, looking away as the queen continued to run with Luffy in his arms. "Even IV you rescued your brother, you shortened our lifespan when you vanished while beating Mahawk. They thought you gone ver good. Well, they won't have to worry about that again. My hormone injection has worn off, and that wound in your side cannot be stretched without all the stitches tearing. There will be no more beating ver you today." Luffy let the words wash over him, not really paying attention while he continued to wake up more. Luffy decided whatever Eva said, it didn't matter. This must be a mystery dream. Or nightmare. Mystery something. He'd ask Robin about it later. If the nightmare was still going, then where was his brother? Weakly, Luffy reached up and grabbed Eva's shoulder, catching his attention mid-rant. "Ace." Luffy choked on a cough. Clearing his throat, he tried again. "Where's Ace?" he demanded in a stronger voice. "Do not worry about Ace boy. He's beating ver his crewmates and doing just fine," Ivankov replied with a softer voice. Idly, the drag queen dodged another marine, sending a death wink towards a group that was getting too close. Whitebeard has ordered a retreat and they are heading to the ships with the other wounded. A flash of light nearby caught Luffy's attention. The blue fire bird was still fighting the old light guy admiral. The Straw Hat captain couldn't see more of the battle with Eva blocking most of his view. If Ace was fighting, he'd be near the front lines. His big brother could never run away from a fight when his precious people were in trouble. Luffy frowned. The revolutionary was headed towards the wall, but the rubber man couldn't leave without Ace. Stop, Luffy growled, lacing a bit of Conqueror's haki in the command. Eva slowed down but didn't stop. I said, stop. He added more haki and grunted when Ivankov suddenly obeyed. Halfway hanging from Eva's frozen arms, Luffy noticed several pirates and marines fall down nearby. He might have overdone it a little. Oi, Eva, put me down, he called up to his friend, not able to see Ivankov's face. The drag queen knelt and gently put Luffy on the ground. Straw Hat boy, do you know what you've just done? Eva said with a wavering voice. Struggling to stand up, Luffy just grunted. His friend took that as a yes. How when, the revolutionary didn't get to finish as a huge explosion happened nearby. Part of the wall collapsed inward as a ship was shoved through, creating a new opening of escape from the Marineford Bay. The explosion didn't bother the rubber man much, nor did the few pieces of wall that bounced off him. He did have to hold on to Eva's arm to keep standing. Before the dust cleared enough to see the battlefield, an anxious call went out. Whitebeard's down. Gritting his teeth, Luffy started his way back to the battle. If the old man was hurt, Ace would never get out of here. He staggered. His legs shook with each step. It felt like his whole body was weighed down, just like when he fell in the ocean. The zapping weakness of seawater was missing, but the trembling in his limbs warned the pirate captain he didn't have much strength left. This was stupid. Had he taken 3 or 4 steps? Eva. Luffy hadn't been listening to his friend's current rant. Ivankov kind of sounded like Chopper when he was worried. But Luffy's quiet voice cut through it and silenced the revolutionary. I need another shot. Luffy managed 2 more steps before his friend exploded. That. Absolutely not. The last Vaughn could have killed you. The next Vaughn surely will. I won't die. Luffy stated calmly, not letting the revolutionary start another long rant. His quiet conviction made the queen hesitate, but the purple-haired man still shook his head. No, Straw Hat boy. They won't risk it. The determination in the hormone man's eyes was firm. Fire flared in front of them, bright enough to make Luffy squint even as far away as he was. Ace. The rubber man picked up his pace. From a slow stagger to a normal one. Through the clearing fog, a ring of fire could be seen. Whitebeard knelt, clutching his chest, just outside the ring. Inside the ring, Ace was fighting Akainu. There was no time to argue with Eva. Ace needed him. Luffy stopped staggering. He ran, dodging the swipe of Ivankov's hands when his friend tried to hold him back. The shot wasn't supposed to heal him, right? Eva had made a big deal about how it just helped him ignore the pain his body was feeling. Luffy knew he had fought after a second shot last time. That meant his body could move this time too. He just had to focus. Ace was knocked down and the ring of fire shrunk. But Akainu wasn't looking at Ace. The red dog was looking at Ace's captain. Deja vu. Except Whitebeard was where Luffy was last time. Luffy knew what came next. Gear, second. The rubber man pumped both his arms for a quick activation. He put twice the power in his legs as he normally would to cover this distance. A slow, strange, and broken body would not stop him. Not this time. The next few seconds slowed down as Luffy watched Akainu move towards Whitebeard. Ace jerked and then started sprinting after the admiral. Coating his arm, from the elbow down, in armament haki, Luffy stretched it back the way he came. Luffy closed the gap before Ace caught up to the lava man. Akainu was just beyond the halfway mark between Whitebeard and the start of the deadly race. Luffy didn't yell the attack name, just shouted in anger. His muscles screamed and pain burned throughout his body. The slight turn the admiral made when he heard Luffy's shout was perfect. The Red Hawk attack landed right in Akainu's gut. The lava man flew out of Ace's smoldering ring of fire, Luffy's fist pushing him as far away as possible. The Straw Hat captain landed on his feet hard. He stumbled when his arm snapped back into place. It took all his willpower to stay standing. Luffy. Ace sounded part mad, part happy, and part disbelieving. Shishishi. His laughter cut off as he choked on a cough that needed to happen but stuck in his chest. Grimacing, Luffy forced the over-tight chest muscles to relax enough so he could cough. It took longer than he thought it should, but having to bat Ace's arms away when his brother tried to grab him made it harder. The fireman was panicking already, but it just got worse when Luffy hacked up a large glob of blood when the cough finally came. By the time he could talk again, Eva had caught up and Ace's fire circle was only a tall wall between them and the Marines. His big brother was arguing with the revolutionary. Luffy couldn't make out the words between Ace's frantic voice and the dull ringing in his ears. Not caring to get involved with that fight, Luffy looked around and noticed Whitebeard was on his feet again. The old man probably could have handled Akainu's attack just fine. Aokiji was getting closer, but 3 Whitebeards were holding him back. The blue firebird guy was fighting the light old guy. Akainu was nowhere to be seen. Oi! Luffy's voice went unheard by his brother and friend. Oi! Still no response. Not wanting to move, unglared at the two and pulsed his conqueror's haki very carefully at just them. Both froze mid-argument and slowly turned to look at him. Shouldn't we get going before Lava Face gets back? They still didn't do more than look at him. Sighing, Luffy grit his teeth and forced his arms to stretch towards the railing of the boat that recently crashed through the wall. It took a second for Ace to register the arms stretching on either side of him, but it was already too late. His big brother started to protest and Luffy had to hold back another laugh. Then he rocketed them towards their escape. Smiling widely, Luffy happily listened to Eva and Ace yell at him instead of about him. Then something slammed into him and sent them all crashing to the ice-covered ground. Ace blocked the next attack from the light old guy, but Luffy barely paid attention due to the blinding pain radiating from his side. Light old guy had pierced straight through the same spot Aokiji's ice lance did. Ignoring the fight, Luffy focused on sitting up. Eva started to push him back down, but Luffy grabbed a wrist. Looking his friend straight in the eye, the pirate captain tried to convey how serious he was. Don't stop me. Even if I don't have one of your shots to help, I won't let Ace die. Luffy stood. Ace was keeping the Admiral's attention, but Luffy didn't think he could keep up for long. Based on the lack of taunts and the frustration showing on Ace's face, his brother thought the same. Wasn't the Firebird guy fighting this Admiral? Stretching his neck up, Luffy searched for the blue flames. Nothing. What did he look like when he wasn't a bird? Oh yeah, the rubber man looked for a blonde pineapple-shaped head. It only took a few moments when Luffy spotted the first commander. He had to take a few steps to stay standing when his head recoiled back to his body. The Firebird man wasn't far, but he had a sea stone cuff on his arm. Eva. The revolutionary hadn't moved from where Luffy told Ivankov to stay out of his way. The purple-haired man shook his head like a dog when Straw Hat called his name. His friends were all a little strange, but that's what made them so great. Where's Candle Head? The question seemed so random it took a moment for Ivankov to answer. I haven't seen the Candle Boy since Vay landed. Vasn't he with the Clown Boy? Ah, Luffy confirmed. But he helped me free Ace. Akainu got his arm, so the Whitebeards took him to get help. Can you find him? We need him to make a key for Old Man Pineapple. Who? Old Man Pineapple. The Firebird man. He can fight the light old guy, but he's stuck in sea stone over there, Luffy pointed. Candle Head can make a key for it. Can you find him? He will likely be with the medics. They will be able to find him at the same place they can get your side stitched up again. Great. Luffy only heard that Eva knew where the wax man was. I'll help Ace while you get Candle Head. Luffy started forward but was stopped by Ivankov grabbing his arm. Straw Hat Boy, do you not realize you cannot win against Kizaru in your current condition? They are amazed you can move at all. Fighting an admiral will get you and your brother killed. I won't die, Luffy repeated with total conviction. After all, how can you die when it's just another nightmare? But I'd rather die than to lose Ace again. I won't let a stupid thing like my body to stop me from saving Ace. He glared at Eva, making sure his friend knew not to get in the way again. How could he save Ace if his friends kept distracting him for stupid stuff? Very well. If you are so determined to get yourself killed, let it be on your head. The drag queen scowled but didn't let go of his wrist. The revolutionary's free hand raised up, the purple glove bulging and the fingertips turning into needle-sharp points. Hormone shot. Luffy had little time to brace himself as the shots slammed into his good side. It took less than a second for Eva's shot, and only half a second more before the pain raced through his veins. Straw Hat's body went stiff as he screamed. Ace jerked when he heard the scream. He had no time to look as he dodged out of the way of another attack from Kizaru. He had half a dozen grazes from those light bullets and his body was feeling more sluggish by the moment. But that was Luffy's scream. Adrenaline pumped through his system as he slammed a hockey-reinforced roundhouse kick into Kizaru's side. Then Ace gave him a haymaker with all the momentum of his kick behind it. The Admiral easily dodged the knee aimed at a kidney, but barely managed to block the downward punch to his face. The second commander jabbed the light admiral with a palm knife, stomped on his fingers when the man tried to springboard away, and ended the exchange with a power-packed punch to the sternum. Granted, the fireman also took another light bullet graze on his arm and a foot to the face, but the slight break in fighting is all he needed. Spitting out some blood from a newly split lip, Ace used the chance to glance at Luffy. Luffy wasn't there. Another scream sounded out, this time of rage instead of pain. Following it, Ace's breath caught in his throat as Luffy engaged with the light admiral. The one Fire Fist had just been fighting. The admiral he had been slowly losing to. If Kizaru outmatched Ace, there was no way Luffy could take him on. Ace jumped in to block a leg swipe that would have knocked Luffy down. The brothers tag-teamed the admiral, but the lower-ranked Marines were starting to reach this area too. Now they needed to provide crowd control on top of the high-risk fight. In between switching off with Luffy, Ace sent a firefly burst to a larger group approaching, then shot some fire bullets at the random Marines nearby. Luffy sent a few Marines who got too close flying with high-speed punches. Knocking the Marines down helped Ace's confidence a bit. Fire Fist hadn't been able to use fire on Kizaru. The light man phased through it without an issue. The only way to fight effectively was with armament hockey. Ace didn't use that much because he usually used his devil fruit. Kind of sucked that he could only choose being made of fire or using armament hockey. Wait, since when did Luffy know armament hockey? Only a few months ago in Alabasta, the entire Straw Hat crew seemed completely ignorant about any kind of hockey. Just how long had Ace been in Impel Down? The fireman only learned of hockey when he reached the New World. Turns out, Ace had been using armament hockey since he was a kid, just hadn't realized that was where his monstrous strength came from. He still didn't know if that was genetics or if his adoptive grandfather's training actually worked. He also couldn't decide which option was worse. Luffy hadn't shown any signs of that. His little brother's determination and rubber body were the idiot's strengths while they were growing up. The kid got stronger over the years, but it was never like Ace's. He did show some signs of it in Alabasta, but only the beginner stuff like someone just starting to use it instinctively. The rubber Gatling gun attack Luffy just used was done with black-fisted hands. That wasn't beginner level. Luffy had to have been trained. At least he hadn't reached Ace's level of control. You only really mastered armament hockey if you could use a basic level without changing your skin tone. The black color still appeared when you put a bunch of power into it. That was needed when blocking the light bullets, but just to hit an elemental fruit user, you only needed the base level. Maybe Luffy realized it when fighting Crocodile in Alabasta. Fire Fist shook off his wonderings and tried to focus back on the fight. Seeing another opening, Ace switched off with Luffy seamlessly. The high kick didn't catch Kizaru completely off guard, but it was a solid hit. Luffy slammed into the Admiral's side, knocking the Admiral's counter-light bullet away from Ace's ribs. The brothers were still taking hits from the light man, but not nearly as many as Ace had taken before. Shishishi. His brother was laughing again, a wide grin on his red-tinted face. Without that smile, the red-tinted skin and steam pouring off of him painted a picture of a vengeful demon. How could his cute little brother look so terrifying? Still, his little brother was amazing. He didn't know where this second wind came from, but the 2nd Division commander knew it couldn't last. Luffy was really not doing well before. Shaking off that line of thought, Ace focused back on the fight. It was difficult to focus when tremors went through the ground. Pops was fighting again, but Ace couldn't afford to look away. Ivankov wasn't able to keep his reckless sibling out of trouble and the Whitebeard medics couldn't babysit the Straw Hat captain right now. There were too many wounded that were being evacuated. Ace needed to stick around until Luffy was off the battlefield, even if it killed him to ignore his Whitebeard brothers. The Whitebeards were old enough to make their own decisions. They'd seen the new world and been through a lot of tough situations. Luffy barely started his journey. Ace was certain his little brother hadn't reached Fishman Island yet. The worst Luffy should have encountered in Paradise was Crocodile or another lower-level warlord. Even if he realized the mysterious power, how did the rubber man pick up armament hockey? How could he use it to defend against an admiral right now? It didn't make any sense. But since when had Luffy ever made sense? At least Luffy made more sense than the disembodied arm that just smacked Kizaru across the face. Wait, what just happened? Scene break. The Great Buggy, master pirate of the seas, newly dubbed captain of 100 impelled down escapees, tried not to cry. Ever since running into Straw Hat while flashily escaping that prison, life made no sense. The icing on the cake, the craziness of the rubber pirate seemed to be catching. The escapees that now called him captain were far stronger than him, but Buggy thought they had been locked up for a little too long. They must be crazy to keep coming up with these crazy ideas about him. Sure, he was awesome, and their worship should be expected in his presence. No, no, no. Buggy liked to dream, but he knew reality. He wasn't an idiot like that red-haired jerk, thinking life was going to be fine no matter what happened. There were just some things that couldn't be done. Breaking out of Impelled Down should have been one of them, but it happened. It happened by sheer dumb luck, but it happened. When the Marines announced Buggy's past with Captain Roger, the Slice Man thought he was a goner. Being a member of the Pirate King's crew had been a death sentence hanging over his head for 2 decades. Instead, he was elevated even higher. It's about time someone noticed his magnificence. No, no. He had to stay realistic. Realistic. He kept making stupid mistakes, and then those morons excused each mistake for something far from what it was. How was he supposed to keep up with all this chaos? Straw Hat challenged Whitebeard and somehow, Buggy got conscripted to help out or his honor would be mud. All these viciously loyal subordinates would be turned into deadly enemies. Buggy was a really flashy guy, but he couldn't hold up to all these Marines in a mutiny. So, after having a random encounter with Mihawk that he managed lived through, curse you Crocodile, Buggy came up with the brilliant idea that they needed to get a hold of a transponder snail and take over the broadcast. That worked out fine until old man Whitebeard lets one of his so-called sons stab him through the chest. While they were distracted by that drama, Aokiji managed to freeze them all. Mr. 3 had disappeared after the ice melted, his only sane companion to combat the craziness surrounding them. Luckily, his crew seemed to have been forgotten amongst all the rest of the fighting. Buggy took full advantage of that to lay low and come up with a new plan. It took forever to get the transponder snail back up and running. By then Straw Hat actually managed to free Ace. Buggy was feeling pretty good. He restarted his very eye telling his men they were going to get themselves a flashy new ship, courtesy of the Marines. That didn't work out so well. Old man Whitebeard also sounded a retreat. Buggy wasn't retreating. They just needed a new ship after Straw Hat destroyed his old one, and the Marines were paying attention to his crew again. They had been pressed to the wall near where the Whitebeard idiot crashed his ship through it. Why did he do that to a perfectly good pirate ship? The escaping Whitebeards helped keep some of the Marines off Buggy's group, but a crazy sword wielder managed to take off his arm. Nothing terrible for the Great Buggy to deal with, but it was sure annoying. His faithful followers took the man down easy, but one of the bumbling buffoons knocked his floating arm flying. Not wanting a repeat of Little Buggy's big adventure, the Slice Man crossed the wall, running after the shooting limb, only to smack into an admiral. Literally. As his arm smacked the admiral across the face, Buggy paled. The impact stopped his arm's momentum enough he could control its flight. The clown quickly pulled it back, not quite dodging a light attack that burned as it sliced into his arm's flesh. After reattaching his limb, Buggy tried to shake out the pain, but didn't have time to assess the damage. He could hear his followers catching up behind him, especially when one dim bulb shouted in joy about the great Captain Buggy taking on Admiral Kizaru. Whirling around, Buggy started to snap at the idiot, only to realize his stupid followers were still holding the broadcasting transponder snail. No, everyone in the world must be watching this. Quickly, Buggy changed tactics. Of course, No admiral is a match for Captain Buggy. Striking a heroic pose, Buggy hoped the waterfall of sweat didn't show up on camera. Another stab of pain in his recently returned arm reminded him that was probably an unwise move to turn his back on the light admiral. Spinning back to face his enemy, Buggy was mystified to see no one there. Captain Buggy scared off the admiral. His followers cried, praising him as Buggy tried to figure out what really happened. Looking down at his arm, Buggy realized it was still missing a hand. The smooth cut-off stump showed his slice devil fruit powers were still working, but it was slightly seared around the edges. The light from the admiral must have burned it even as he cut the hand off. Glancing around for his missing hand, the pirate clown realized the admiral hadn't completely disappeared. Straw Hat and Fire Fist were fighting evenly with the light admiral not too far away. Lucky break for Captain Buggy. Sighing in relief, Buggy focused back on his hand. Pulling the hand towards him, without knowing exactly where it was, could be a bit tricky. It didn't seem too far, but as Buggy mentally connected with it, he realized his missing hand was holding onto something tightly. Frowning, Buggy commanded the hand to let go. It didn't respond. He tugged the hand back towards him, and again, it resisted. Grumbling at how his own body should at least listen to him, Buggy yanked his hand back, hard. This time it responded and pulled back, still holding on to whatever it had grabbed, but didn't return. Captain Buggy. His followers cried out, "I can't believe it. You must have been so frustrated when you graciously delayed your duel with Whitebeard." "Huh," was his elegant response. What were they on about now? He yanked back on his missing hand again. Only Captain Buggy would refuse to let an admiral run away after challenging him. Buggy glanced at the Straw Hats fight at the same time he did another yank on his hand, this time feeling it let go and start to return. He quickly lost his focus as he realized Kizaru wasn't fighting anymore. His missing hand was flying back from the Light Admiral's position. As it reattached, Buggy opened up his palm and found a scrap of fabric. A familiar pinstriped yellow fabric. One that matched the Light Admiral's iconic suit. "Thanks, Buggy." Straw Hat's annoying voice yelled out, now much farther away than from where he had previously been fighting Kizaru. With Ace's curses, Buggy figured the rubber man must have done that annoying slingshot move. Captain Buggy let Straw Hat and Fire Fist escape. So generous. Using only his hand, he distracted the admiral. "He's so great. What guts. We'll follow you forever, Captain Buggy." Dread filled him. Blood drained out of his face. Buggy couldn't even squeak as the words of his new crew filtered in and processed. His hand had been attached to the admiral. Straw Hat and Fire Fist were leaving and the admiral. That thought was cut off as a light-filled kick slammed into him, pinning him to the ice-covered ground. My, I have bigger fish to fry. But if you really wanted to die that badly." Kizaru's lazy voice rang like a death toll. Luffy laughed as they landed on the ice. Buggy was such a funny guy, and always so helpful even when he whined so much. The clown pirate was almost as bad as Kobe sometimes. He hoped the light old guy didn't beat Buggy up too bad. It never occurred to him that the slice man might die. Buggy was like that, harder to kill than a roach. Ace pulled him along as the fireman raced towards his retreating crewmates. Luffy didn't mind. If he started to complain, his brother was likely to hit him for rocketing them without warning. The rubber man wondered why no one realized how cool rocketing around was. There wasn't a better way to travel. Surprisingly, there was no major resistance when the brothers reached the wall the Marines pulled up. They were now in the bay proper, but there wasn't much solid ice left. Only around the edges. The bay was filled with random ice blocks and slushy-looking ocean. Luffy frowned. He didn't remember how they got away from the island last time. Traffy said he picked him up, but Traffy wasn't here. Would he still be here when Luffy wasn't hurt? How else were they supposed to leave? Whitebeard's ship was burnt down, and that other ship was stuck in the execution area. "Commander Ace." Some of the Whitebeard pirates yelled for Ace, directing him towards one end of the Crescent Bay. This area was rather free of Marines and the Straw Hat captain grimaced. The only time when Luffy went through Marineford where Marines were absent was just after the walls went up and the lava fists started raining down. Even in dreams, no Marines meant trouble. The rubber man stretched his neck to glance around the area. The brothers were pretty far away from where the main hole in the wall the giant made was. They were running down one side of the iced-over bay with a bunch of other whitebeards. The majority of the Marines remained on the island side of the wall. The other breach in the wall, one with just a ship, only had general fighters near it, no big names. Whitebeard himself was holding the line in front of the giant who was still laying down on the wall but was hugging a boat-like teddy bear. The future Pirate King was beginning to worry. If the giant waited too long to get up, he could really die. Ace's crewmates better hurry up and get out of there so the giant could move. Actually, since they made it over the wall without a hole, the giant didn't really need to stay there, did he? Luffy could see the blue firebird in the air again, fighting with the light old guy. Most of the cannons on the wall were taken out, but there were still explosions ahead in the direction they were running. There were occasional flares of magma showing the red dog was on the other side of the wall as well. Luffy felt a tug on his arm. Luffy stuck his tongue out towards the lava admiral as he let his head snap back to his body. The longer Akainu stayed away the happier he'd be. My crew has a few boats to retreat in. Many of our allies were still outside of the area and are keeping the marine boats away. We just have to make it past the last line of Marines, Ace told him as they started running again. The pirate captain grunted an acknowledgement and grinned wide. Bet I can knock out more Marines than you can. Ace squawked, causing a ripple of laughter around them. Shishishishi, Luffy laughed. Fire Fist Ace grinned at his little brother's familiar laughter. Don't count on it. With renewed vigor, the two brothers raced ahead of the whitebeards around them, eager to get back into the fight. Ace's crewmates cheered and picked up the pace a bit as well. There wasn't a line of Marines to slam into, just a chaotic mess of Marines versus pirates scattered everywhere. Luffy kicked into second gear and used his rubber jet pistol to knock out the first Marine he could reach. Ace just snorted and knocked out two Marines with a couple of fire bullets. The two stuck together and kept a running tally, egging each other on. Ace was at 37 while Luffy just needed two more to catch up when a shower of ice javelins rained down on them. Aokiji, spat Ace. The Ice Admiral didn't engage them directly but kept a steady rain of javelins over the area with the least number of Marines. Luffy dodged them with ease and pulled Ace away a time or two when his brother seemed a bit too caught up in his thoughts to notice he was about to be hit. Luffy never remembered his older brother being so slow before. The third time Luffy had to nudge Ace out of the way, the pirate captain snapped, "Oi! Did impel down wear you out that much, Ace?" Then another thought occurred to him that spread a large smile across his face. "Or are you just getting too old? Old fart. Slowing down in your old age. I see how it is. Need a nap, old timer." The knock on the back of his head just made him laugh more. Ace grinned back, "You're one to talk. Should I start prepping you a bottle, baby brother?" Banter was good. His big brother couldn't be too worn out if he could still joke around. They continued to insult each other until suddenly, Ace grabbed Luffy by one arm and swung him around. Luffy used the momentum to add speed to his stretch and knocked the unsuspecting Ice Admiral in the jaw with a hockey-enforced jet pistol. Once his feet were back on the ground, Luffy swung Ace around and launched the fireman at Aokiji. With the javelins stopped, the Whitebeard pirates were surging back towards the escape route and Marines were streaming back into the fray. Luffy did a quick knockback of two more Marines before snatching his big brother out of the air and pulling him back to the ground. 37. Luffy shouted to the fireman as he punched an ice attack to the side and let Ace's fire fist fly unobstructed towards the ice man. Aokiji sidestepped it, but Ace grinned and replied, 38. Groaning, Luffy did a low jet whip to knock Aokiji's legs out while Ace hit high. The Admiral grimaced after realizing his sidestep had injured one of his men and physically blocked Ace's attack while jumping over Luffy's whip. The rubber man snapped his leg back before a newly made ice sword stabbed it. The sword made it a bit more complicated, but without the speed of light the Yellow Admiral had, the Ice Admiral was far easier to tag team. Ace, a swordsman with a wicked cool mustache, jumped into the fight and parried the ice sword. Glad to see you again. The large smile never wavered as the new guy dueled the Admiral. Vista. Ace's answering grin was just as large. You need to get going. No one wants to leave without our brother on board. Vista grunted as he continued fighting the Admiral. Ace looked like he would argue when a lance cut into the fight and another man joined Vista. Get to the shoreline so we can start getting our family home. Speedy Jiro called. We have a feast planned to do Thatch proud. Luffy ignored the tears forming in Ace's eyes and just started pulling his brother towards the escape. Thanks mustache sword guy. Lance guy. With the Ice Admiral stuck with new opponents, Ace and Luffy continued to make slow progress to the boats. When the Straw Hat Captain knocked out his 62nd Marine, tying his brother, that dreaded voice sounded loud and clear in the future Pirate King's ears. Still acting like a dog with his tail between his legs. No wonder your captain is no more than a washed-up hound doing nothing but reminiscing of his golden years. Just like the son of the Pirate King does nothing more than hide behind others when trouble comes calling. Luffy didn't need to look back to know that voice. Instead, his head swiveled quickly to his brother, who had frozen up in rage. Not again. Luffy would not do this again. With a hockey-infused fist, Luffy slammed into his big brother's head as hard as he could. The second commander of the Whitebeards dropped but didn't go down. Luffy, what in the world was that for? Ace screamed, clutching his head. The Straw Hat Captain didn't answer. He grabbed his brother's arms and flung him towards the boat line while slamming a jet axe attack into the ice, throwing huge chunks in the air, blocking a lava fist head and didn't stay to engage the Red Dog. He coiled his legs and leapt after his brother, snagging his belt as he passed over Ace's head. What do you think you're doing? You rubber-brained idiot. After yelling, Ace rolled over in the air, pulling both brothers out of the air and crashing into the ground. Fire Fist didn't let that bother him as he pulled himself up, grabbed his younger brother's shoulders, and glared into Luffy's eyes. What's up with all that? Luffy glared back at his brother. What else? I didn't go through Impel Down, dealt with that nasty poison guy, and fought through a war, twice, just to see die because you can't run away. Ace's eyes widened in shock, his hands loosening their grip on Luffy's shoulders. You never run away. I get that. So, I won't ask you to. If I have to knock you out, I'll do that. If I have to carry you, throw you, or shove you away from here, I'll do that too. Didn't I already tell you? I'm here to save you, Ace. He didn't wait for Ace to get over his shock. Luffy flipped back, kicking Ace with both legs, sending the Whitebeard commander flying towards the boats once again while the rubber man regained his feet. Where the two brothers used to lay was a new crater with Akainu's fist still steaming from the near miss. The pirate captain couldn't dash away. There were too many of Ace's crew nearby. If his crewmates were hurt, Ace definitely wouldn't leave. Before Ace could make it back to him and while Akainu was just starting to pull his fist from the remaining ice, Luffy blew up his arm into gear 3rd and threw it behind him. He tried his best to cover it in armament hockey, but it didn't even cover all the knuckles. Uncaring, the rubber man pulled his arm forward as soon as he had a decent distance behind him. Akainu was just looking up when the elephant fist slammed into his chest. Luffy felt the impact and the burn on his non-hockey covered skin. He continued to push forward, crying out to put more power into the swing. Instead of pulling his fist back, Luffy let gear 3rd go, shrinking his body and snapping all his limbs back in one go. Hot, 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 hot. The mini straw hat waved his burned hand in the air, trying to cool it down. He didn't look at it, trying to see where Akainu ended up. He cursed when he couldn't find the lava admiral right away. The rubber man pushed his tiny legs to move as fast as he could in the direction Ace flew. His body snapped back to normal just as he heard his brother's angry call of, Luffy. The fireman was running back and did not look the least bit happy. The pirate captain just laughed, shishishishishi. A tingle of warning had him twisting around, only to get a fist of lava to the chest. Luffy felt a tug on his vest at the same time as the burn from the lava fist hit his chest. The tug pulled him away and to the side of the attack. Ha! Jinbei cried with his free arm shoved out. A wave of air and water pushed the Akainu away from the two pirates. Luffy. Ace still sounded upset, but more sad than angry. Luffy felt his brother's arms go around him, hands avoiding the chest area that still burned, even without the lava near him. The rubber man couldn't see his brother. In fact, his whole vision was dyed black. Around that time the pirate captain realized he wasn't breathing and tried to suck some air in. He choked. Okay, that wasn't good. Luffy tried to cough and felt wet globs dribble from his mouth. But this time he was able to breathe in. It was shallow and not enough air, but it gave him the chance to cough again. For the next few moments, just trying to breathe was all Luffy noticed. Muffled sounds of yelling, The feeling of being pulled this way and that, pieces of ice bouncing off his rubber skin, it all orbited around him without really registering. Wasn't he doing something? Oh yeah, he was dreaming, wasn't he? Stupid Ace. Why could he never be rescued? Luffy got farther than he ever had in one of those dreams. They were so close to getting out of there for the first time, and Luffy had to get knocked down by a Kainu. Again. No way was Ace going to run away after the red dog killed his little brother. But did he die in his dream? Wouldn't he be waking up then? Luffy tried to open his eyes, realizing they were closed. He coughed instead. Wow, that hurt. His chest felt like it was fire. He couldn't breathe more than a short shallow breath at a time. The rubber man tried to open his eyes again and managed to crack them. Blinking a few times, the Straw Hat captain watched as a boat got closer and closer. Was the boat moving? Shouldn't he move out of the way then? No. Luffy was moving, but he wasn't though. He was just laying here. But wasn't he being carried? Who? He couldn't turn his head, but rolled his eyes to the right, looking up. His brother's face was turned away, looking behind him. The fireman was grinding his teeth before yelling at someone. Luffy knew he should have heard that, but it all sounded like he was underwater. He lifted an arm to his ear to see if it was covered in water, but the limb only twitched in response. The rubber man felt really heavy. His eyes started to close again. Ace was there. His big brother always kept them safe. He'd just sleep in today and let Ace take care of everything. No, that wasn't right. Ace was gone. He broke his promise. He died. Luffy clawed away the sleepy feeling, gritting his own teeth as he pried his eyelids open again. It was only halfway open, but he managed. The pirate captain watched as they came right up to the boat. Ace leapt up onto the boat deck in one graceful arch. Stupid fire powers. Why did Ace get to fly? Oh, yeah, because he couldn't rocket like Luffy. Gear 4 was just as much flying as Ace's fire, anyway. Rubber was still the best. A lot of people were on the boat and there were cheers everywhere as soon as Ace landed. Luffy could hear them even underwater. Or was he above water? The 2nd Division commander snapped at them, cutting off the happy sounds. Where are the medics? Oh, Luffy could hear Ace again. Zoro must have pulled him out of the ocean already. Luffy's eyes closed. Ace didn't really register the cheers when he landed on deck. It took a lot of energy to move. Akainu was back there badmouthing his family, and his stupid little brother had been badly injured. All he wanted to do was go back and give the red dog a piece of his mind. But Lu needed help, fast. Seriously, if Jinbei hadn't been there, that attack would have punched straight through his little brother. Where are the medics? He snapped to the nearest crewmate. Luck was with him. Tachi wasn't a division commander, but he often led groups in the 6th Division. He likely knew what was going on. Follow me, Tachi called, already moving towards the center of the deck. It looked like the inside of the ship had already filled up, because there were a bunch of injured sitting and stretched out on deck surrounding the main mast. His crewmate went straight to a medic that was just finishing a dressing on a leg. With the splints on both sides, it was likely a broken bone, but the amount of blood still seeping through the layers of gauze said there was something more. Hey Tom, Ace's little bro needs help. A small wave of cheers went up from the injured around them as they realized Ace was with them. Ace's attempt to smile back at them was more of a grimace. The medic paid no attention to the cheers, but moved to a slightly more open space and gestured to Ace to put Luffy down. The Fire Fist sat down with Luffy still in his arms. There wasn't enough room for his little brother to lay out without him being propped up anyway. He tried to hold as still as possible as Tom started asking questions. Besides the chest wound, was he injured anywhere else severely? Ace mentioned the ice sword wound, but said he hadn't seen all of Lu's fights so there could be more. Any allergies or medical history Tom needed to know. Nothing they knew of, but he did eat the rubber fruit, so his body was rubber and he couldn't handle water or sea stone. Tom wasn't one of the nurses or doctors in the infirmary, but Ace worked with him on a joint division mission once. His family had been in the medical industry before he had turned to the life of piracy. He was one of the better non-medical field medics they had in the Whitebeards. It was maddening that Tom didn't actually look at the obviously huge burn on his little brother's chest, but Ace held in his frustration as his crewmate looked over Luffy's head, limbs, and the rest of his torso. He noted a few areas that would need attention later, and Ace tried to remember them, but still was mostly focused on the large chunk of roasted flesh. When Tom finally started to examine it, it didn't take long for him to make a decision. Good news is, he's not going to bleed out. It's all cauterized. Bad news is I can't do a thing for him. He needs a surgeon to get the bits of melted fabric out and likely graft some new skin over the worst of the area. He needs a doctor to make sure there isn't any internal injury I can't see from here. Ace's heart sunk. Nothing. The medics could do nothing. How far away had Pops kept the nurses and doctors? Swallowing the panic, Ace tried to focus on the here and now. What can we do until then? I know there is plenty of ice around us, but don't use any on the kid. It's bad enough he should be in a warm area, not cold. Sticking near you is likely going to help him a lot because of the cold air around us. His body is likely in shock, so keep his blood circulating and watch him to make sure it doesn't get worse. He probably can't feel pain in the center where it's the worst, but I'm sure the rest of it could do with a large dose of pain meds. I'll see what we have left. Ace nodded to Tom's instructions. Okay. He was helping by keeping the temperature around Luffy warm instead of cold. Don't use ice. Keep his legs up and get him some pain meds. Tom patted Ace on the shoulder. When we get out to sea, I can see if we can try to clean out the wound, but we need a stable environment to even try that. Right now, it would just make it worse. Hold on tight until we get out of here and call us over if he suddenly takes a turn for the worse. He's a tough kid, so I think he'll make it. The nurses refused to stay far away, so they're all on the Mobi-2 nearby. We should meet them within the day once we set sail. One more pat and a quick squeeze of his hand and Tom was off to the next crew member in need. Tachi had already left back to the rails. Even if Tom said Luffy would make it, Ace could read between the lines. His little brother was in bad shape and most people wouldn't make it until they meet up with the medical division. Luffy wasn't most people, but that didn't change the face he needed every bit of help to keep his chances of making it high. Ace planned to head back to help after getting Luffy treatment. His Whitebeard brothers needed to get back safely as well. But Tom just told him Lu needed his fire fruit to keep warm. Was he supposed to just sit here after all they had done for him? No one would even be here if it wasn't for his stupid mistake of getting captured. Take cover. The call came out, and Ace spun where he sat to see a volley of cannonballs flying towards the ship. Instinctively, Fire Fist clutched Luffy with one arm and pulled his other from under his little brother's leg. A quick tunnel of fire exploded the shells in the air before they hit the deck. There were a few scattered cheers, but Ace heard way more relieved sighs from those around him. The wounded were sitting ducks. Orders were yelled out. A group of Whitebeards were going to go out and take out the new cannon that had been positioned near them. Ace grit his teeth. More of his brothers going back out there in the chaos. No way. He couldn't do this. He shifted Luffy so his arm would secure him to his side, his little brother's head nestled in his neck. He used his free arm to hold Luffy stable as he stood, grunting a bit with the effort. Weeks of being chained with sea stone wasn't doing him any favors right now. Ace started back towards the rail. He might not be able to fight, but he could give cover fire from the rail, even if he needed to carry Lu with him. The 2nd Division commander was running on fumes anyway. Not having to move his body would let him use his powers to protect his brothers for longer. Oi, where's the cannon? Ace demanded from a nearby pirate. His crewmate didn't even look at him before pointing in a direction and taking another shot at a marine with his rifle. Ace nodded in thanks anyway and turned to where his own target would be. Tapping another Whitebeard on the shoulder, Ace ordered him to move out of the way and took his place at the rail. Pulling his free arm back, Ace fired it up and charged it for a bit. Checking to make sure none of his Whitebeard brothers were near the group of enemy cannons, Fire Fist lobbed the fireball towards the weapons. It was a beautiful explosion. This time the cheers weren't just scattered. If he wasn't carrying Lu, his brothers probably would have slapped his back in thanks. Instead they all just called out, some joking insults and others heartfelt thanks. Ace grinned for real this time and found a different target to launch a fire bullet, blast, or ball at. He'd keep doing so until he didn't have any fire left to shoot. Shouts, cheers, explosions, and weapons clanging echoed strangely in his ears. Was Zoro and Sanji having a contest without him? Did Frankie invent something that blew up before it was done again? His chest ached, but nothing like how his whole body cried out when he raised his hand to rub it. That pain woke him right up. His head was heavy, but he could open his eyes. A beaded necklace stared back at him. Ace's beaded necklace. Who dared to wear Ace's necklace? Glaring, Luffy pushed against the chest he was leaning against, so he could yell at the man face to face. The man that looked like Ace. Luffy blinked in surprise, all anger gone. Ace. How? Luffy. Ace called happily. Don't move too much, okay. Akainu got you really good. Tom said you might not feel it, but trust me, it's bad. I need you to just stay still until we reach our doctors. Doctors. Akainu. Akainu hurt his chest. Luffy already saw a doctor for that. TRA guy was awesome. He didn't need to see anyone else. Except Chopper. Chopper was definitely the best doctor in the world. His big brother ruffled his hair. Don't worry Lou. Just sit tight and you'll be fine. The second commander shifted suddenly and threw his free hand back to throw out a ball of fire towards a wave of incoming bullets. Jostled, Luffy tried to complain only to white out from everything else when his chest squeezed tight. He couldn't breathe. He could feel someone shifting him and some blows to his back dislodged something sticky in his throat enough he could cough. Coughing hurt more, but the rubber man couldn't stop. After spitting out a few globs of something that tasted nasty, Luffy could breathe again. Sounds started coming back to him, but mostly all he heard was a bunch of guys yelling over top each other. Luffy couldn't move much, but he realized could feel his brother's body holding him. The Straw Hat Captain was hunched over to be able to breath and spit out the icky glop at the same time. Ace's hands carefully supported his shoulder and waist, the side without the nice gash courtesy of the Ice General. When the coughing finally subsided, the rubber man just relished the ability to breathe again. You alright Luffy? Ace asked as he gently rolled the younger boy so he could see Luffy's face clearly. The pirate captain just glared at the Whitebeard commander. He didn't dare try talking to Ace after that coughing fit. His big brother should know better. Let's get you a place to sit and rest. When the second commander tried to set his brother down, the Straw Hat Captain grabbed his shorts near the belt on the side. Not leaving you. Luffy bit out between shallow breaths, holding back the desire to cough. Ace shook his head slowly. I can't stay here, he said smiling sadly. My crewmates are still out there. I need to give them some cover fire. His smile faded a little as he stroked Luffy's hair. Just stay here. The medics will be by soon and we'll both be getting out of here before you know it. I'll stick nearby, I need to keep the air around you warm still. No. Luffy rolled his head back and forth, emphasizing his verbal answer even if he couldn't manage a true shake of his own head. Take me with. Lou, Ace sighed. I can't fight while carrying you. You've got a hole in your chest. It's not going to stretch like the rest of you. We can't risk a coughing fit like that again. Don't care. Luffy breathed out. You can't die. His body was fighting him every second, screaming at him to pass out and let his brother take care of the rest. But his brother was stupid and broke his promise. Luffy had to do this. He grit his teeth and closed his eyes. This was his body. It wasn't as bad as when Eva-chan's shot ran out. It was his dream. He could do this. With all his willpower behind it, Luffy raised his free hand and clutched Ace's shoulder. Oi! Don't move, you idiot! Ace yelled but didn't move in fear of dropping his heavily injured brother. Luffy let go of his brother's shorts and grabbed the other shoulder. Shifting his legs, Luffy pushed his body in an upright position, ignoring his chest screaming at him. This next bit was going to be tricky, but it was the only idea the rubber man had to stay with Ace. Luffy pulled himself up, switching one hand to grip the same shoulder as the other. Ace yelled some more and started to shift so he could pull Luffy back down. Luffy shoved down on the shoulder, forcing his brother to shift his feet so they both wouldn't fall down, making the fireman pose in a strange bow. At the same time, the pirate captain lost strength and started to fall. He rolled his weight, so he fell forward instead of straight back. Just like the Straw Hat Captain hoped, he felt right onto Ace's back. The pain that pulsed from his chest was immense. Luffy ignored it and gripped his big brother's shoulders again to keep from sliding off. Holding his breath to delay the coughing fit for a moment, the rubber man stretched his arms to wind them around Ace's chest, under his brother's arms and Luffy's own back, securing himself to Ace's back. His chest wound screamed at the pressure, but the future Pirate King didn't care. He didn't care that the second commander was wiggling to try and get Luffy off. The Straw Hat Captain was busy winding his arms around them both. Luckily his big brother was trying to be nice and not jostle the younger. Luffy took full advantage of it. He pulled his legs up and wrapped them around the second commander's waist twice. Keeping his limbs stretched took effort, but the rubber man already knew the trick to keep them stuck. He could tuck his feet and hands into his legs and arms so they can't snap back without pulling his feet and hands loose first. "Hey, this isn't funny, Luffy. Let go right now." Any response Ace might have received was lost to the coughing fit the rubber man could no longer hold back. Luffy tried not to squeeze Ace too much, but all he could manage was to hold tight and not pass out. When the coughing died down, his big brother was rubbing his arms and telling him to calm down. "Sorry," Luffy apologized after he was able to breathe again. The fit was bad, but he felt he could take slightly deeper breaths this time. "See Lu, you can't even breathe. You need to stay here. I promise I'll stay on the boat and just fire some shots to cover my crewmates, okay?" The Straw Hat Captain shook his head. "Hey," his body worked this time. "Come on Luffy. I'll be right here. We'll both be safer if you just stay still." "Not gonna do it." Luffy closed his eyes and gave a quick squeeze of his limbs to emphasize the point. Ace sighed and Luffy tried to stay awake as his big brother started talking to different people. There was shouting all over the place and the boat rocked a lot. Likely from nearby explosions just as much as waves. "Hey, Lu." The fireman tapped his arms for attention. Luffy hummed a response to his big brother. "I'm going to move a bit. Just stay still, okay?" Luffy nodded his head into Ace's back. His brother stood up and walked a bit. Luffy kept his eyes closed. If he just stayed still, Akainu couldn't punch a hole in Ace's back without going through the rubber man first. He didn't really care whatever else happened in this dream. Just being here, on a boat, with Ace still alive was enough. He'd probably wake up before the ship sailed, but it was his dream. If he imagined his brother finally made it out of Marineford, who was going to tell him he was wrong about his own dream? Hands tried to pry him off his brother. No way. He was staying right here. He squiggled his fingers around until he felt them bind up a bit. They'd have to untangle his fingers to get him off. Look at that. Ace's body jerked by the cry of a Whitebeard pirate. The Straw Hat Captain could feel his brother's body tense and vibrate with rage. "Teach," Fire Fist growled. "What?" Luffy didn't need to be taught anything. With that last thought, blackness claimed the Straw Hat Captain again. Scene break. If Lu wasn't on his back, Ace would have been in flames right now. The traitor dared to make an appearance. Street little pleasure to learn Teach betrayed the Marines just as he had done the Whitebeards. The idiots should have seen that coming. Almost all of Marineford took a break from fighting as they watched Teach and Pops fight their battle. Ace cursed himself for not warning his captain about the dark fruit's negating power. It wasn't like they had a lot of time to catch up, but why hadn't he even thought to tell him about the traitor's powers? A smile blossomed on his face as it looked like his old man didn't need the heads up. Whitebeard was winning, hands down. Then the little coward cried for help and that new crew of his jumped right in. The second commander was right there with all his brethren in outrage as Pops took all those hits head on. Ace broke the railing trying hard not to rush in. Luffy was still stuck to him. He couldn't risk his little brother when the moron was in such bad shape. "One Piece is real," Whitebeard cried out, echoing across the entire island. No, this wasn't right. No. His captain, his Pops, stood still. He didn't say more. He didn't move. No. The Marines didn't let the pirates think too long. They surged in towards the unmoving pirates as soon as they realized the captain was dead. Ace flame bulleted any within range, then took to the ropes to get a better advantage. He climbed all the way to the top of the mast, beyond the crow's nest, and sniped anyone in a marine coat he could see. Akainu had come back with a vengeance, calling out for Ace and Luffy's head. The commanders were dealing with him, keeping him from the boat. Fire Fist kept the Marines away from their boat and stayed focused on Pops. The traitor had covered him with a big black sheet while the traitor's crew took care of anyone that approached. What the heck were they doing? The horror at the answer when Blackbeard reappeared was soul deep. The second commander held tight to the mast as the ship rocked in the waves from the copied Quake fruit power demonstration Teach gave. Rage followed the horror. As the shaking calmed, as the waves steadied, all Ace could hear was the stupid laugh of Blackbeard's, echoing across the shocked island. His brothers were scattered across the island the traitor just tried to crush. His little brother could be dying on his back while Ace could do nothing. His pops was dead, and the self-named Blackbeard dared to desecrate his memory by stealing his devil fruit power. Enough. Ace looped one of the bands of rubbery arm over the top of the mast, steadied himself, and lifted his free hand over his head. The rage, the pain, the frustration of how useless he's been this whole battle, Fire Fist fed all of that to the flames and gathered them above his open palm. The miniature sun formed faster than he'd ever managed it before. Flame Emperor. As he murmured out his technique's name, he realized it wasn't enough. The sun was wide destruction, but the distance was far. His brothers were still out there. He focused all that flame and pulled it back inwards. Keep it all but condensed it. The power of the sun in the size of a beach ball. Sweat poured down his whole body. Even Luffy's rubbery limbs seemed to slip a bit. But Fire Fist held firm to the mast and focused more than he had ever done. He could see that little traitor, so joyful about his newfound power. The miniature sun near the coastline hadn't even made him twitch. Blackbeard obviously felt the world was his now and nothing could stop him. Ace disagreed. Strongly. His eyes narrowed as he calculated the trajectory. This wouldn't be a lobbing lance of fire. He meant this to be as fast as his flame bullets. Faster. That traitor needed to be ashes. Had to be. Must be. Will be. Rage. Ace gasped as he launched the orb towards Teach. It shot forward faster than Ace could track it. Although that might be due to the fact Ace was having trouble tracking anything. His vision went double, then blurry. Black spots quickly popped up and the world spun. Pain wasn't his friend, but it wasn't really his enemy either. After all, the heightened sense of pain came with the dark fruit. That fruit he spent most of his life searching for. He wasn't going to let a little bit of pain stop him now. Okay, it was a whole lot of pain. Who cares? While the pain never numbed, Blackbeard was getting better at shoving it to a corner of his mind to deal with later. Getting his leg incinerated in a split second was more shocking than painful. It was maybe a minute before the Whitebeard traitor was back on his feet. Well, foot. Actually, sitting worked for him right now. Balance was going to be troublesome until Doc could fix something up for him. At least his knee was still there. Fire Fist Ace found a new trick in prison. Shrugging, Blackbeard turned his attention to the coastline. Looks like his ex-commander gave everything to that last attack. With a wide grin, Marshal D. Teach noticed their situation with only a glance. Straw Hat was the only thing keeping the 2nd Division commander from a free fall off the mast of their little ship. The rubber boy must be close to done too, because he was just dangling there, clutching his older brother with one limb slung over part of the mast to keep them from falling. Straw Hat should have been pulling them up already. Blackbeard laughed. How could he pass this opportunity up? You missed Ace. He taunted, grin as long as his face. Then it twisted. Too bad. I'll take a bit more than a leg as payback. The quake powers gathered in his hands as he grasped the air, focusing on the brothers' boat. Before he could finish the attack, he quickly rolled out of the way of an incoming cannonball. Ah, Garp. Well, a punch from Garp would have been a cannon shot to anyone else. Burgess stepped in to handle the old-timer, but Blackbeard's moment was gone. The good old Golden Buddha joined the party, spewing nonsense. Blackbeard could handle the old fart. Rather than aim for just the boat, Teach made sure to rock the whole ocean, along with the island. Everyone here was going to die sooner or later. He could settle with Ace or Straw Hat another time if those two happened to be a lucky survivor. Scene break. Jimbei dived for the water. It took some time to disengage from the ongoing fights, but he hadn't let the two brothers leave his view until now. Akainu was rampaging. Division commanders were working hard to hold him back, but Jimbei needed to get the brothers off that ship. Water would be faster, even with the ice chunks and random debris. Some of the crew helped the brothers down from the mast. Jimbei didn't know how Straw Hat managed to catch them in his condition. Ace must have passed out because the 2nd commander would have never let his little brother hang there so long if he could still move. If Ace was out, they were sitting ducks. Along with all the crew on the boat. There were more commandeered marine boats on the other side of the thin strip of land separating the bay from the outside of the island. This ship could take off and Jinbei would lure Akainu away with the brothers. The Whitebeard ally boats on the outside of the island could provide cover while the new boat with Ace sailed away. This one, still technically inside the bay, had less marine boats to deal with, but a much longer distance to sail before being clear of an admiral. Leaping out of the water, Jinbei went high enough to give the Whitebeards time to recognize him before he landed on an open part of the crowded deck. The commanders are stalling Akainu. This boat needs to leave now. Everyone else will retreat on the outer coast. I'm taking Ace and his little brother there to help cover your exit. Where are they? He loved Whitebeard, but the fishman also enjoyed the old man's crew. Always friendly, but also always on task when needed. Immediately the anchor was going up and one member led him to the brothers. Nothing serious on Ace. He's out cold from overdoing it, we think. Might be a narcolepsy attack. His brother needs to get to our medical division for treatment ASAP. Not much we can do in the field but keep him resting and watch for new symptoms. I know we don't have a choice, but try not to jostle them too much. Kid wrapped himself up around Commander Ace and tied his fingers up. Little brother has a nasty burn on his chest, so it's not good to be stuck to Fire Fist's back like that. No one's been able to unravel him yet, so you'll have to carry them as is. Jinbei grunted in understanding, looking at Ace sitting propped up against on crew members while another gave up trying to untie Luffy's rubbery fingers. The Straw Hat captain was piggyback on Fire Fist, with both arms and legs wound around the older brother's waist and torso. I'll try my best. Thank you. Jinbei lifted Ace up over his shoulder, trusting Luffy's tangled limbs to keep the younger one steady. Good luck. The fishman leapt off the deck to the shore and started running for Marineford's wall. Fishman Karate called forth a spout of water to assist his leap up and over the metal barricade. They aren't leaving here alive, Jinbei. Akainu screamed after him. The lava admiral had no problem scaling the wall while sending a tidal wave of lava toward the ship the fishman had just left. The commanders were forced to defend the crew, leaving a clear path for the admiral to aim for the brothers. Dodging was the best the ex-warlord could do midair. Dodging while inching towards the outer coast. A whirlwind of sand distracted Akainu for a critical moment, but it was a short reprieve. Hell wink, a massive gust of air blocked a flurry of lava fists. Keep going, little Jinbei. Take good care of Straw Hat Boy. They will take good care of the admiral. Jinbei nodded gratefully and continued to run. Trafalgar Law stood on the deck of the Polar Tang, his submarine hidden beneath the tumultuous waves of Marineford. The chaotic battle unfolded through the periscope. He assessed the situation with a critical mind. His primary objective was clear: ensure the safety of his crew while offering assistance only if the conditions were favorable. Captain Beppo, his loyal mink companion, spoke up, "Shouldn't we help them now?" Law's gaze remained fixed on the battlefield. "Patience, Beppo. We move only when the time is right. Straw Hat is a potential ally, but our safety comes first." Law maintained a calculated distance, knowing that direct involvement could jeopardize the lives of his crew. He observed Jinbei making his way towards the wall with Luffy and Ace in tow. Law's sharp mind quickly formulated a plan that would allow him to provide aid without leaving the submarine. "Prepare the medical bay," Law ordered his crew. "We need to be ready to treat them if they make it here." As the polar tank surfaced just enough to allow visibility, Law activated his room fruit powers, creating a room that extended towards the shoreline. He remained on the deck, his presence commanding attention without exposing himself to unnecessary risk. "Jinbei," Law called out, his voice carrying over the chaos. "If you can reach us, I'll ensure their survival." Jinbei turned, his eyes locking onto Law's distant figure. Understanding the conditions, Jinbei nodded and continued his determined advance towards the submarine. His path was soon blocked by the relentless lava admiral, Akainu. "Do you really think you can escape with them?" Akainu sneered, his fists erupting with molten lava. "I won't let you take those brats away." Jinbei steeled himself, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. "I will protect them, no matter what," he declared, his resolve unshakable. Akainu lunged forward, his lava-covered fists aiming to obliterate Jinbei and the brothers. Jinbei countered with his fishman karate, some powerful surges of water to clash against the molten lava. The battlefield turned into a volatile mix of steam and explosions as their attacks collided. Fishman karate, vagabond drill. Jinbei shouted, unleashing a massive water shockwave that momentarily pushed Akainu back. But the admiral's relentless assault continued, his lava fists burning through the water defenses. Just as Akainu's fist was about to connect with Jinbei, a swirling mass of sand intervened, deflecting the attack and creating a barrier between them. Crocodile emerged from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous glint. "Looks like you could use a hand, fishman," Crocodile remarked with a smirk. "I won't let this lava dog have his way." Akainu growled, his anger intensifying. "Crocodile, you dare interfere?" Without missing a beat, Crocodile manipulated the sand to create a massive sandstorm, obscuring their movements and giving Jinbei a chance to catch his breath. As the sandstorm raged, an unexpected figure stumbled into the fray, Buggy the Clown. "What's going on here?" Buggy shouted, his eyes wide with panic. "I didn't sign up for this." In his frantic attempts to escape the chaos, Buggy stumbled over a piece of debris, causing him to trip and fall. As he fell, his severed hand flew off and inadvertently slapped Akainu across the face. The unexpected and comical nature of the incident momentarily disoriented the admiral, causing him to stagger. "Buggy, you fool!" Crocodile snapped, taking advantage of the distraction to summon more sand and bind Akainu's movements. With the combined efforts of Jinbei, Crocodile, and Buggy's accidental help, they managed to create a window of opportunity. Jinbei seized the moment, leaping towards the polar tang with Ace and Luffy still secured on his back. As Jinbei neared the polar tang, Law extended his powers to create a clear path, momentarily disrupting the battlefield and providing a brief reprieve from the onslaught of attacks. He manipulated the space within his room, using it to shield Jinbei and the brothers from incoming projectiles. "Keep moving, Jinbei," Law instructed, his voice steady and composed even as sweat dripped down his face from juggling so many parts in his room. On the battlefield of Marineford, amidst the chaos and destruction, a young marine named Kobe stood trembling. His eyes were wide with horror at the senseless violence and loss of life. Bodies of fallen comrades and pirates littered the ground, their blood staining the once pristine ice. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of burning flesh from Akainu's relentless lava attacks. Screams of pain and terror echoed around him, as friends and foes alike were engulfed in the inferno. He saw a marine, no older than himself, cut down by a pirate's blade, the light fading from his eyes as he fell lifeless to the ground. As Kobe stood there, he began to experience something strange and overwhelming. His vision blurred and then sharpened, allowing him to see things happening far from his immediate vicinity. He could see the intense battle between Jinbei and Akainu, the fierce determination in Jinbei's eyes as he fought to protect Luffy and Ace. He could see Trafalgar Law on the deck of his submarine, his crew working diligently to prepare the medical bay. A pirate struggled to crawl away, his legs missing from a brutal explosion, leaving a crimson trail in his wake. The shattered remnants of ships and cannons lay strewn across the battlefield, evidence of the intense and unforgiving combat. Kobe saw a marine officer with a prominent scar across his face, standing defiantly against a group of pirates. Despite his grievous wounds, the officer fought valiantly, his sword swinging with diminishing strength. Just as Kobe thought the officer might turn the tide, a pirate's spear found its mark, piercing through the officer's chest. The marine fell to his knees, clutching the spear, before collapsing onto the ground, lifeless. He locked onto a pirate woman cradling a young man, no more than 18 years old, in her arms. The young man was motionless, blood trickling down from a deep gash on his forehead. The woman's cries were heart-wrenching, echoing across the battlefield as she desperately tried to rouse her lover. Voices began to fill Kobe's ears, voices that were not near him. He heard Jinbei's resolute declaration, "I will protect them, no matter what," as he clashed with Akainu. He heard Crocodile's smirk-filled remark, "Looks like you could use a hand, fishman," as he intervened with his sand powers. Even Buggy's panicked shout, "What's going on here?" reached Kobe's ears, adding to the cacophony. Near the remnants of a shattered cannon, Kobe saw a young marine, tears streaming down his face, kneeling beside the body of his fallen friend. The deceased marine's hand was still outstretched, as if reaching for something, his face frozen in a final expression of shock and pain. The young marine clutched his friend's hand, sobbing uncontrollably, the reality of loss hitting him hard. Amidst the chaos, a solitary pirate stood with a wild look in his eyes. His crew lay dead around him, and his hands were stained with their blood. Driven to the edge of madness by the carnage, he swung his weapon aimlessly, attacking anything and everything in sight, including fellow pirates and marines. His rage and despair were palpable, a stark reminder of the battlefield's toll on sanity. It wasn't just sights and sounds that overwhelmed Kobe. He began to feel the emotions of everyone on the island. The fear and desperation of marines and pirates alike, the anger and hatred radiating from some, the determination and resolve from others. So much confusion and panic from so many. The sheer intensity of these emotions crashed over Kobe like a tidal wave, threatening to drown him in their depths. Kobe's heart pounded in his chest, his breath coming in shallow gasps. He didn't understand why he was experiencing these things, why he could see, hear, and feel so much. It was all too much to bear, a sensory overload that left him trembling and on the brink of collapse. But amidst the overwhelming chaos, a realization began to form in Kobe's mind. The senseless violence, the endless cycle of death and destruction, it had to stop. Sum every ounce of courage and strength within him, Kobe shouted. Enough already. His desperate plea momentarily halted the battle, drawing the attention of both Marines and pirates. The pause was brief but significant, a moment of clarity amidst the madness. Why they listened, he did not know. He did not care. Enough of this fight. Let's stop. Even as Akainu moved amongst the quiet battleground to stand before Kobe, the young Marine yelled once more, "This is a waste of life." He could still see things. Feel them. A Marine medic was frantically trying to save a man who had been severely burned by Akainu's lava. The medic's hands were steady, but the sheer extent of the injuries made it clear that the effort was futile. The man's agonized screams gradually faded into whimpers and then silence as his body gave out. Wishing for wars that could be avoided, Kobe gasped. Chasing pirates who have no desire to fight, he continued. He saw a Marine battleship engulfed in flames. The cries for help from those trapped on board were chilling, as sailors desperately tried to escape the inferno. Some leapt into the icy water below, only to be swallowed by the unforgiving sea, their final screams echoing in the air. A pirate with a weathered face and desperate eyes cradled the lifeless body of his son. Tears streamed down his face as he rocked back and forth, whispering words of comfort to the son who would never hear them again. The raw grief etched into his features was a stark contrast to the fury of the battle that still surrounded them in the far corners of Marineford. A young Marine officer, covered in soot and blood, propped against a fallen mast. The officer's breaths were labored, his chest heaving with effort. His eyes were fixed on a photograph clutched in his hand, a picture of a smiling family. As his life ebbed away, he whispered a name, the sound lost in the din of the battle. Kobe wanted to sob from the emotions and scenes. Desperately, he tried to explain. Every sailor who dies from now on, don't you think it would be better to be saving those who could be rescued, rather than sacrificing more and more lives? The young Marine shouted once more, "We're acting like complete idiots." "What are you?" Akainu's fist raised up, lava flowing, ready to strike Kobe. "The Navy doesn't need this kind of people who don't know how to follow their orders." Precious seconds were wasted. Kobe realized he was going to die but had no regrets. He managed to say what he wanted to. Suddenly, a figure appeared before Kobe, blocking the attack aimed directly at him. "Well said, young Marine," it was none other than red-haired Shanks, his presence commanding and awe-inspiring. "The seconds of courage you created by betting on your life, both for good and for evil," Shanks remarked with a calm but firm voice, "have just changed the fate of the world. Quick, come." All over the island, members of the Red Hair crew intervened in battles that had continued, despite Kobe's yells. Kizaru, the Light Admiral, was launching devastating beams of light towards the retreating pirates. His attacks were precise and relentless, showing no signs of stopping. Just as another beam of light was about to strike a group of fleeing pirates, Ben Beckman appeared, his rifle trained on Kizaru. "Kizaru, that's enough," Beckman said, his voice steady and commanding. Kizaru paused, raising an eyebrow. "Beckman, you always show up at the most inconvenient times," he said with a smirk. Beckman's eyes narrowed. "This war is over. Stand down." Kizaru's smirk faded as he assessed the situation. Yaso, the sharpshooter of the Red Hair pirates, spotted a group of Marine snipers taking aim at the retreating pirates from a high vantage point. With precise and rapid shots from his own rifle, Yasop neutralized the snipers one by one, ensuring the safety of those below. Sorry, boys, but we can't have you taking any more lives, Yasop muttered as he took aim at the last sniper. The marine snipers, realizing they were outmatched, quickly retreated, allowing the pirates to continue their escape. Lucky Roo barreled through a group of marine soldiers who were relentlessly pursuing the injured pirates. His sheer strength and speed were overwhelming, and he effortlessly incapacitated the soldiers, creating a safe passage for the wounded. Anyone else want a piece of me? Lucky Roo called out, his voice booming with confidence. The marine soldiers, seeing the ferocity of the red-hair pirate, paused, wondering which action to take. Aokiji, the ice admiral, was trying to maintain order amidst the chaos, using his ice powers to immobilize pirates. Limejuice intervened, his agility and quick reflexes allowing him to dodge Aokiji's attacks and counter with precision strikes. Aokiji, it's time to let go, Limejuice said, his tone firm. Aokiji, recognizing the determination in Limejuice's eyes, sighed and lowered his hands. I suppose it's time to end this madness, he agreed, stepping back. Shanks' sword was against Akainu's lava-covered fist, the intense heat radiating from the admiral's attack. The tension between them was palpable, the air thick with anticipation. Kobe finally gave into his wounds and fainted. Shanks moved back a step. Akainu's eyes burned with rage, his clenched lava fists trembling with unspent fury. For a moment, it seemed as though he might continue the fight, but the unwavering resolve in Shanks' gaze gave him pause. A short distance away, Jinbei's determination navigated him through the chaos, finally reaching the deck of the Polar Tang. Law's crew moved swiftly, assisting in lifting Ace and Luffy onto the submarine. Get them to the medical bay, Law ordered, his tone authoritative. We need to stabilize their conditions immediately. The polar bear on board approached Law, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Captain, do you think they'll make it? Law glanced at his companion, his expression unreadable. They will. We've come this far. We won't let them die now. Submerge, Law commanded as everyone entered the submarine. The polar tank submerged once more, its mission to extract and stabilize Luffy and Ace successfully completed. The objective of the Marines was lost. I came to put an end to this war, Shanks declared. The steady hum of the polar tang's engines pulsed in the background as Ace stirred on the medical cot. His brows furrowed, fingers twitching slightly before his eyes snapped open. The ceiling was unfamiliar, sterile, bright. He shot up halfway, groaning at the tension in his muscles. The weeks chained, days fighting, and brushes with death added up. His head whipped around until his eyes landed on a familiar face tucked into bandages nearby. Luffy, don't sit up so fast. Trafalgar Law's voice came from behind him, calm but edged. You're aboard my ship. We're submerged. He's stable. You're not quite out of the woods either. Ace glared at Law, then looked around the room as if he'd landed in another war. Where's the rest of the crew? What happened? Are we prisoners? No, Law replied coolly. He didn't flinch under Ace's stare. You're alive. Luffy's alive. I got you both out of Marineford. You're recovering. That's all. Ace's fists clenched, eyes narrowing. You got us out. Why? What do you want? Nothing, yet. Straw Hat's alive because of you. And me. You can yell when you're steadier. Ace's heartbeat was pounding. Flashes of cannon fire, Whitebeard falling, Luffy coughing on his back. He couldn't separate what had happened from what he feared had. You're not one of us, Ace muttered. I've never liked pirates who only move when it suits their plans. And I've never liked pirates who jump into a battlefield without a backup plan, Law shot back. Before Ace could swing his legs off the cot, the chamber door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Jinbei stepped inside, wearing a faint, relieved smile. Glad you're still full of fire, Portgas D. Ace, Jinbei rumbled. But take a breath, you're not chained anymore, and you're not alone. Ace's shoulders sagged slightly. Jinbei, you made it. Somehow. You did, Jinbei said, folding his arms. You're on a submarine run by a pirate who risks more than he admits. And your brother is healing. Slower than you, but he's got strength. Too much, sometimes. Ace's hands shook lightly. He's really alive. Jinbei nodded solemnly. He wrapped himself around you like a backpack and refused to let go. You carried each other through hell. Ace looked over to Luffy, still unconscious. His chest tightened. Grief, joy, and disbelief collided together. Law moved beside Jinbei, hands in his pockets. Your brother's tougher than any medical textbook has room for. Give him time. Ace didn't thank them. Not yet. But the tension in his shoulders eased. A little. Jinbei clapped him lightly on the arm. Welcome back to the land of the living, Ace. Ace didn't reply. Instead, he stared at Luffy, jaw set, and murmured, he better wake up soon. I've got too much to say to the idiot. Scene break. The sterile white ceiling was too still. Too quiet. Not the sea. Not the chaos. Not the end of anything. Luffy blinked. His chest ached. Badly. Not the kind of ache from eating too much meat. It was the kind that screamed something horrible had happened. Bandages stretched across his chest, tight enough to pinch. He stared at them and frowned. No boats. No Ace. No blood. No yelling. No bells. Just silence. Was he, in the dream again? Stupid dreams, he muttered as he shifted to sit up, only to wince and collapse with a loud groan. His rubber limbs weren't stretching. That was new. The ache reached deeper than he'd expected, coiled in his ribs like someone had lit fire inside him. He gripped the mattress, eyes darting around the unfamiliar room. No windows. Metal walls. A steady hum beneath everything. A submarine, he asked out loud. I'm dreaming about submarines now. No one answered. His breathing picked up. No crew. No sea. No sunlight. His brain scrambled through images. Ace was falling. Whitebeard yelled. There were bells and Blackbeard grinning. He remembered carrying Ace. He remembered being carried. He remembered yelling, coughing, not breathing. Then, waking up. This isn't real, he whispered, voice cracking. I woke up already. I saved him. We got out. Luffy kicked out with one leg, toppling a tray from the bedside shelf. It clattered and bounced across the room, sending medical supplies scattering. He flailed a weak arm at a monitor nearby, knocking it sideways. Wake up, wake up, wake up. He growled, louder now. He shoved his shoulder against the wall. He tried to stretch, but his rubber wasn't cooperating. His chest burned and tightened, and his voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. I did it, didn't I? His vision blurred as tears prickled at the edges. The silence was too much. Ace should have been here. Or Jinbei. Or anyone. His dream was mean. A sudden burst of energy hit. The rubber man flung his blanket off and swung both legs to the floor, wobbling forward like a drunk toddler. If this is a dream, then I'll break it. The door creaked open just as he raised an arm to punch it. Penguin peeked through cautiously, eyebrows raised. Whoa, Captain said not to wake you, but I guess he didn't say how you'd wake up. This is a nightmare, Luffy shouted, wide-eyed and trembling. I need to wake up. From somewhere deeper in the corridor, footsteps echoed, then Law's voice rang cool and steady, so much for a quiet recovery. Law stepped into view, the door sliding open to let him in like he belonged to the room more than the walls did. His coat swayed lightly with each step, eyes already scanning the damage. You're not dreaming, Law said, tone clinical but edged with dry irritation. You're conscious, awake, alive. No, Luffy yelled, stumbling to his feet despite the pain searing through his chest. That's what dreams want me to think. That I'm awake when I'm not. You're standing. Your chest is bandaged. That pain you're feeling, not imaginary. Trust me, Law said, arms folding. I'm a surgeon. Luffy bared his teeth, frustrated tears threatening in the corners of his eyes. I already woke up once. I saved Ace. Then I blinked. Then this metal boat. That's how he died. It's all messed up. You didn't fall asleep again, Law replied. You passed out from injuries. Your body gave out. You're recovering. Stupid. Luffy snapped. You're one of the weird dream people who always says stuff like that. Next you'll tell me I have to fight some giant meat monster to escape. Penguin inched further into the room. Captain, maybe, do we let him punch a wall or? No, Law cut him off. He eyed Luffy with sharp calculation. You're still healing. If you tear your stitches, I'm not patching you again. Luffy swayed, clutching his ribs, glaring through blurry eyes. Then how do I wake up? You are awake, Law said again, each word deliberate. The war ended. Shanks called it off. Ace lived. You're safe. That's reality, whether you accept it or not. Luffy let out a low noise, somewhere between a growl and a sob. His knees buckled slightly as the confusion crashed over him again. He grabbed the wall to stay standing. I don't want to be stuck in a dream where he's alive, he whispered. I lose him again when I wake up. Saving him in a dream is enough. Law didn't respond immediately. Just stood still, watching the boy who'd broken open an entire battlefield and couldn't believe he'd won. Penguin finally stepped forward and gently turned off the medical monitor to silence the wailing it had been making. The man nudged the scattered tray with his foot. You can sit down again, Law offered. Or break the room. But either way, you're not waking up because you're not asleep. Luffy choked out a part laugh. His fists clenched at his sides, eyes wide and wild, teetering on the edge of hysteria. Then the door behind Law slammed open. Ace, no, Law began, but it was already too late. Ace burst into the room, breath heavy, eyes blazing, and voice halfway between disbelief and fury. You're awake and causing trouble already. Luffy's head whipped toward him. His breath caught. Ace was standing there, alive, still angry, still loud, still Ace. For half a second, Luffy's face lit up. Then it crumbled. No, Luffy whispered, bit the cot. No, no, you're not real. Not again. Ace froze mid-step, confusion flickering across his features. What are you talking about? You died. Luffy shouted, arms flailing. I dreamed you were alive, and then you died again and it hurt worse than before. You're not here. Ace blinked, stunned. Luffy, I'm here. You're awake. No. Luffy's voice cracked. It's another trick. Another dream that wants to make me happy just long enough to rip everything away again. Ace closed the distance in 2 strides and grabbed Luffy's shoulders. Oi, idiot, feel this. I'm real. Ace slammed his fist into Luffy's head, ignoring the protests of Trafalgar Law in the background. Did that knock some sense into you? Luffy reeled back, blinking, then rubbed his scalp slowly. That hurt. Everything actually hurt, but he'd been ignoring that. Can't you feel pain in dreams? Saving Ace had been rather painful after all, and that was a dream. He looked up. Ace was breathing hard, annoyed, very much solid. You keep hitting me in dreams. Luffy muttered. Ace snorted. You think a dream would risk my knuckles on your stupid head? And just like that, Luffy sagged forward, forehead pressing into Ace's shoulder, tears hot but real. He leaned his forehead against Luffy's, something they hadn't done since they were kids. You did it, Ace whispered. You chased me down, screamed at me, and refused to let go. I'm alive because you wouldn't stop. You're not dreaming, you're just stubborn. Ace didn't push him away. Didn't speak. Just let him think of the truth. He was awake, and Ace was alive. Luffy blinked. Slowly. His breath slowed, just enough to draw in Ace's scent, sea salt and ash and stubborn life. You always smell the same, Luffy said hoarsely. Ace snorted. Well, yeah, I don't change just because you're losing your mind. From the hallway, Jinbei appeared, leaning casually on the frame. Ace, I take it you found him. He's still half convinced I'm ghost juice, Ace muttered. Jinbei stepped in, nodding respectfully toward Law, then to Luffy. You fought harder than anyone out there, Straw Hat. The dream is over. You won. Luffy looked between the 3 of them, breath shaky, hands still trembling as they gripped Ace's arms. Slowly, as if testing gravity, he let himself collapse sideways into Ace's chest. Ace caught him effortlessly. You're real, Luffy mumbled. I'm awake. Ace tightened his grip. Yeah, and you better believe I'm sticking with you this time. Jinbei smiled softly, glancing at Law. Law exhaled through his nose. He'll still break something. Penguin chuckled from the doorway. Maybe furniture. But not himself. The days passed like they were made of sunlight and stew. The Straw Hat Captain didn't count them. Hancock brought food in baskets so large they required 2 Kuja warriors to carry them, and the Fire Fist brother sat cross-legged beside his bed, spinning stories like he was trying to fill the room with laughter. Twice a day, the surgeon checked his vitals and muttered about reckless behavior, grumbling every time Luffy tried to stand, which was often. You're not a rubber band right now, Law muttered, pressing a hand to his chest. Luffy didn't argue. Not really. He just grinned and reached for more food. Ace had never talked this much before. Not even when they were kids. But now he told everything. There was an island of fire dancers in the South Blue, a sea king mistook the Moby for its mother, and there was a time Marco turned into a phoenix mid-snore and nearly set the crow's nest ablaze. You should have been there when Thatch tried to make seaweed pie, Ace said, shaking his head. Pop's banned cooking for a week. Vista taught me how to braid my hair, he added, tugging at a loose strand. I didn't keep it, but it was really cool. Law paced the room like the bandages were misbehaving. He adjusted them, scribbled notes, and scolded Luffy about rushing recovery. I'm not in a rush, Luffy said once, mouth full. I already know what happens next. Law left with a scowl. On the fourth day, Hancock arrived with a bowl of meat so fresh it steamed in the cool air. Luffy devoured half of it before Ace could sit down. The jungle rustled around them. The wind shifted. Ace reached for the bowl, but the meat was already gone. Luffy was licking juice off his fingers when Law stepped away, eyes narrowed. There's something in the water, the surgeon said. Ace stood. Another Sea King. Law didn't answer. He was already walking toward the shore. They reached the shoreline just as the waves broke apart. It wasn't a ship, but a man, rising from the sea like it was a bath he'd grown bored of. His coat was torn, his boots missing, and his hair clung to his shoulders like seaweed. Behind him, a dead Sea King floated, jaw slack and eyes glazed. He walked up the beach, dripping seawater. Luffy waved. Hey, Rayleigh. Ace blinked. Wait, Rayleigh. The old man stopped. He looked at Ace for a long moment. He didn't smile right away, just studied him long enough to make Ace shift his weight. You've got your mother's eyes, he said. Ace's jaw tightened. You knew her. Rayleigh nodded. I knew them both, but I won't speak for either. Ace didn't respond. The old man turned his gaze to the sea, then back to the Fire Fist brother. I saw Marineford, he said. I saw what you chose. That was your father. No one who watched you fight could doubt it. Ace's shoulders eased, just slightly. Rayleigh stepped forward, not imposing, just present. I'm not here to talk about Roger. I'm here because your brother's ready to move. Ace glanced at the rubber man, who was already reaching for another dumpling. He's been ready, he said. Rayleigh smiled. Then let's see what he does with it. Luffy shrugged. I already know what I'm gonna do. The old man raised an eyebrow. Really? Another shrug, mouth full. I'm gonna get strong. Then I'm gonna go find my crew. Then we're gonna kick everyone's butt who needs it. Rayleigh chuckled, low and dry. That's not a plan. That's a weather forecast. Ace snorted. It's a Luffy plan. The old man turned toward the jungle, scanning the tree line like it might offer commentary. You've got time. Not much, but enough. If you're serious, I'll train you. But you'll need to listen. Luffy swallowed. I've already listened to you. You were a good teacher. But I already did my 2 years. I'm good. Rayleigh paused. His gaze didn't shift, but something behind his eyes did, like a door creaking open. I haven't trained you yet. Luffy blinked. I know. Roger's first mate stepped closer, not looming, just curious. I was going to suggest 2 years. Isolation training. The Straw Hat captain nodded. Yeah, I know. I already did that. Rayleigh's voice dropped. When? Luffy tilted his head, like the question didn't make sense. I already did it. That's all. Law, who had been silent until now, narrowed his eyes. That doesn't answer the question. Luffy shrugged. It doesn't matter. I'm here. Rayleigh turned to Ace and Law. Has he said anything strange? Anything that doesn't fit? Ace shook his head. He's just Luffy. Law crossed his arms. He says strange stuff all the time. He's impulsive, stubborn, and somehow healing faster than he should. But nothing unusual for him, as I've been told. Rayleigh looked back at the Straw Hat captain, who was still eating his dumplings. The boy offered one to the old man without ceremony. Ace shrugged. I guess you could consider sharing his meat unusual. Rayleigh took the offered dumpling, turning it in his fingers like it might answer a question for him. You said you've already trained. With me. Luffy nodded, mouth full again. 2 years. Rayleigh tilted his head. But I only just arrived. Yeah. Rayleigh didn't press. Not yet. He left the dumpling untouched. You knew I'd suggest 2 years. You did before. Luffy leaned back, arms behind his head. You remembered something I haven't said. Luffy blinked. I guess. Rayleigh sat down beside him, slow and deliberate. Then tell me what you remember. Luffy shrugged. You took me to ring the bell. I trained. I got stronger. My crew trained too. We were going to met back up. The bear guy saved our ship. I told him thank you and then I was at Marineford. He grinned, big and wide. I saved Ace. The former second commander of the Pirate King didn't speak right away. He just looked at Luffy. There was a quiet recognition that comes from seeing something impossible and deciding not to fight it. Yes, he said finally. You did do that. He picked up the dumpling and took a bite, chewing slowly as if the taste might help him think. Luffy stretched, arms wide, belly full. Hey, Hancock, we need more food. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the sand. The jungle had quieted, its usual hum softened to a hush, as if even the trees were listening. The air hung heavy with salt and steam, and the last of the food lay untouched in the bowl beside the old man. A tap of his fingers against the ceramic broke the silence. You said I took you to ring the bell. The rubber man blinked, then popped a fist into his open palm with a grin. Right, I forgot. I have to tell my crew they've got 2 years to train. He was already halfway to standing. Hey, Rayleigh, can we go back to Marineford? A slow, dry smile tugged at the corners of the old man's mouth. But I already did that. Right. Brows furrowed, the straw hat captain frowned. Not yet. Leaning back, Roger's first mate studied him. If you've already trained, then I've already taken you to ring the bell. Isn't that how it works? A scratch to the head, a thoughtful pause. No, I'm here. I trained. But you didn't. So you didn't take me to ring the bell. His gaze lifted, clear and certain. It would have been the other Rayleigh. From beneath the tree, the Fire Fist brother stirred. Other Rayleigh. No answer came. The old man simply watched the boy like he was watching the tide shift, not with disbelief but with quiet recognition. You trained, he said at last. But your body didn't. Huh. A loose gesture followed. You're strong, sure. But you're not 2 years strong. Not yet. The straw hat captain scratched his cheek, thoughtful. Oh yeah, it's been really weird. It was so slow and I have to do a double pump for gear 2 still. That was really annoying. I thought Marineford was all a dream cause I couldn't stretch like I should have. A nod from the old man. Your mind remembers the training. But your muscles don't. So what, I have to do it again. Not all of it. You've got the instincts. You just need the body to catch up. With a sigh, the rubber man flopped. Why would I want to redo an adventure? I already did that once. Was it a good one? A grin returned. It was kind of cool. You have some pretty cool moves. And the animals were bigger than back home. There was always lots of meat. I like Hancock's lunchboxes. The old man chuckled, low and warm. I bet it could still be fun. And it shouldn't take as long this time. Maybe 1 year. A shake of the head. No thanks. I'm gonna stick with Ace this time. I saved him, but he keeps doing stupid stuff. A groan came from the tree. I'm right here. Exactly. Laughter rippled from the old man's chest. That's what pirates are supposed to do. Wouldn't it be boring if we didn't do stupid stuff? The Fire Fist brother sat up, rubbing his neck. I'm going back to the Whitebeards. I need to say goodbye to Pops. Ask the crew for forgiveness. Help them rebuild. Thoughtful now, the old man nodded. They're in the new world. Scattered, but still holding ground. His gaze shifted. Do you need a ship coated? A blink. Yeah, probably. The straw hat captain sat up fast. Wait, you're going to the new world. That's where they are. The grin faded. I'm not going without my crew. A shrug. Can't help you there, Lou. The Whitebeards need me. You're welcome to come with me, but I'm going. I can't go to the new world. My crew isn't here. Then bring your crew. They have to train. Then let them train. Come or stay, it's up to you. Fingers dug into his hair, the rubber man growled, as if he could squeeze the answer out of his own skull. Rayleigh watched him quietly, then spoke. Why not let Ace go while you train your body? 1 year. Just enough to catch up. By then, he can take some time off from the Whitebeards, and you two can stick to paradise until your crew is ready. The straw hat captain studied him. The old man stared back, calm as the tide. Like it didn't matter which way the boy went, only that he chose. A glance toward the Fire Fist brother. A nod. Sounds like it could work. It's gonna be crazy with Pops gone, but if I know you need me in a year, I'll talk to everyone. We'll make a plan. Don't know how long I can stay, but I bet I can visit for sure. Sharp and certain, the rubber man nodded. Okay. 1 year. The old man stood, brushing sand from his coat and chugging the last of his drink. We'll head off to ring the bell tomorrow then. Let your crew know. He paused, one eyebrow raised. You need me to tell you what to do. A wave from the Straw Hat Captain. Hancock can do the ink. I'll be ready when you are.